Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Sharad Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. As you get in here, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I go live every night and talk about true crime and current events, and I use my experience with mental health, addiction, and narcissistic abuse, and the fact that I'm on the spectrum, and I apply it to those things. So I give a unique perspective because of that. Today, we're going to go over the DNA results. We got some DNA results from the glove and inside the home from the FBI's database CODIS. We're going to go over that. Then we're going to go over some Maureen. She's out there tonight too, but it is going to be on Megyn Kelly's channel. Ashley Banfield, no new video. Brian Entin, only shorts today so far. So that's what we're going to go over. And then this might be the last night here of this for a minute. We might switch to another case coming up because there's really only so much to talk about with this, you know. But we'll see. And I've been seeing other kinds of things about, usually he does, Tim, but it all depends, right? And maybe he'll do that again tonight. But people have been talking about this Luke Daly thing. I did see the video of that. And yeah, there's a little bit of resemblance, but I'm withholding my thoughts on that. I don't really know. But the DNA results we're about to go over, that would also contribute to what I think, and I'll tell you how it ties in. But I think people are starting to get a little weird with it too. I see that on X. I see people starting to blame Savannah, and they're saying things along the lines of, oh, she knows where she is. They're kind of turning acting like she's Erica Kirk a little bit, and they're starting to criticize her, and they're saying, oh no, she knows where she is. Her emotions aren't right. She's keeping things from us. Is that true? I don't know. I don't think so. I think people are being a little too hard on her. But that's just me. On holiday, eh? Yeah, that would be next, Tim. That's next. But all right, let's jump into this here. Our buddy Brian, Kat. Yes, Kat is a crazy woman. Yes or yes. But also, Kat has a great YouTube channel. Yes, yes or yes. Off topic. Hello there, Jen. Welcome. But what is your room paint color? I have to remember what it is, but it is a soothing color, isn't it? Hello there, Risk. There's probably a very specific name for it that I just can't remember. But let's jump into the Brian Entin shorts here, see what he has to say for himself.
Hey guys, just wanted to check in. It is Tuesday morning. I'm in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood right now, working on a couple of leads. Hopefully I'll have some new information for you later this afternoon with some stuff that I'm working on. But no significant developments today from the Pima County Sheriff's Office. We don't know of any briefings that are going to be happening. I obviously reported last night to you what I learned about the gun shops, which I'm still trying to get more information on. But I do know that the FBI went to several gun shops in Tucson and had 40 names and 40 photos that they showed the employees, trying to see if those people had been at the gun shop or had purchased a weapon. So a lot of people are like, well, what are the names? You know, I mean, obviously we're very careful about what we report here. So, but I am trying to dig a little more and get a little more on that front. And that's pretty much it right now. I will keep you guys posted as the day develops. Again, I might have a few solid things that I'm working on today. So I'll let you guys know. All right, bye. Oh, but it also rained a ton this morning. I mean, a lot of rain in Tucson, and now the sun's finally coming out. Hey guys,
So there wasn't much going on in that one. But this is the one where there is something going on with, and this is going to give us some things to talk about.
Hey guys, so a pretty significant update here when it comes to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. The sheriff's office confirming that they put the DNA now from the gloves that were found about 2 miles from Nancy's house into the CODIS system, which is the DNA FBI database, and that there was no matches, and that they've also put other DNA into the CODIS database related to the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and that also has not come up with a match, which is disappointing news, especially because I was hoping that maybe the DNA found inside Nancy's house might match something. And at this point, no matches.
So to reiterate that, because this is super important. So the glove, no matches on the FDA database CODIS. DNA found in the home, no matches on the FBA database CODIS. This is a pretty big thing because, as I was saying yesterday, that's one of the things I'm hanging my hat on, the DNA in the house. Not as much the glove. The glove didn't surprise me. It would have to be a pretty stupid criminal to throw it that close to the home. But inside the home and the DNA, they're basically, what they're doing is they're checking their criminal database and they're checking those other like 23andMe type sites, but not the top 3 of them, right? Not the most popular ones. So this is a bit of a hit to me. And for all the people talking about the Luke Daly thing, now my next question would be, okay, does he have a record? Because if he has a record, then, and it's not showing up in this database, well, then you can probably rule him out if he has a record, because wouldn't his information be in CODIS at that point? So that would be my thinking with that. But again, I don't want people to jump to conclusions about that thing too. It could be. I'm not ruling it out, but I'm certainly not saying it's a sure thing.
So that just came from the sheriff's office. Again, that's not what we were hoping to hear. A few other things with Nancy's pacemaker. They confirmed that they're attempting to locate the device and are working with the manufacturer and other experts to assist in that effort. Remember, I told you guys about the signal sniffer they were using. They're still working with Walmart management to identify and isolate the individual who purchased the backpack, because we know the backpack came from there. And also a new line in their latest state release about the Guthrie family. This is from the sheriff again. They say, in criminal investigations, evidence is examined to either build a case or clear individuals. At this point in the investigation, the Guthrie family, including siblings and spouses, has not been identified as suspects. So a little bit different from the statement that the sheriff put out yesterday, but essentially the same thing. So that's the latest. Again, it's kind of not the news we're hoping for when it comes to the CODIS database. Hey guys, so a pretty significant update here when it comes to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. The sheriff's office confirming that they put the DNA now from the gloves that were found about 2 miles from Nancy's house into the CODIS system, which is the DNA FBI database, and that there was no matches, and that they've also put other DNA into the CODIS database related to the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and that also has not come up with a match, which is disappointing news, especially because I was hoping that maybe the DNA found in.
So far, no matches on the DNA. So what does that mean we're left with? We're left with hunting the backpack and where that was bought, or maybe the balaclava mask. I think that's really what they're looking for now.
Inside Nancy's house might match something, and at this point, no matches. So that just came from the sheriff's office. Again, that's not what we were hoping to hear. A few other things with Nancy's pacemaker. They confirmed that they're attempting to locate the device and are working with the manufacturer and other experts to assist in that effort. Remember, I told you guys about the signal sniffer they were using. They're still working with Walmart management to identify and isolate the individual who purchased the backpack, because we know the backpack came from there. And also a new line in their latest state release about the Guthrie family. This is from the sheriff again. They say, in criminal investigations, evidence is examined to either build a case or clear individuals. At this point in the investigation, the Guthrie family, including siblings and spouses, has not been identified as suspects. So a little bit different from the statement that the sheriff put out yesterday, but essentially the same thing. So that's the latest. Again, it's kind of not the news we're hoping for when it comes to the CODIS database. Hey guys, so a pretty significant update here.
Zowie, welcome. And Brenda, let me know what you said. I don't remember what everyone says sometimes.
Hey guys, so an update here from Nancy Guthrie's house. There are 2 people who showed up, one in a pickup truck and one in a Subaru. The sheriff's deputies let them through, and they went to the back of the house. One of the men was holding a briefcase, and we could see them go to the back of the house, and then we could see with our drone that they went inside the house. I'm not sure why. We don't know who they are. There was no markings on the car. It does not appear that they are law enforcement, but the deputies here obviously knew that they were coming because they let them through and they let them go to the back of the house. So I haven't seen that happen before. I don't know if it's like someone that the family sent over to get something out of the house. That kind of occurred to me. Maybe a private investigator, something like that. I don't know. But it was just something that I haven't seen happen before, and one of them is actually still here at the house right now. So I'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, the big development now has been from the sheriff's office saying that there's no DNA matches in CODIS at this point. So I'll keep you guys posted if anything else develops. Hey guys, so an update here from Nancy Guthrie's house. There are two people who showed up, one in a pickup truck and one in a Subaru. The sheriff's deputies let them through, and they went to the back of the house. One of the men was holding a briefcase, and we could see them go to the back of the house, and then we could see with our drone that they went inside the house. I'm not sure why.
So what do you think these two guys are doing in Nancy Guthrie's house? Trying to search for evidence that they might have missed before? What do you think it is?
Don't know who they are. There was no markings on the car. It does not appear that they are law enforcement, but the deputies here obviously knew that they were coming because they let them through and they let them go to the back of the house. So I haven't seen that happen before. I don't know if it's like someone that the family sent over to get something out of the house. That kind of occurred to me.
So our surgical nurse in the chat said maybe they're trying to find the pacemaker transmitter so it can actually be found by that signal sniffer. Maybe
a private investigator, something like that. I don't know. But it was just something that I haven't seen happen before, and one of them is actually still here at the house right now. So I'll keep an eye on it. Obviously,
another person says maybe they're changing the locks. Well, that could be too.
Development now has been from the sheriff's office saying that there's no DNA matches in CODIS at this point. So I'll keep you guys posted if anything else develops.
All right, those are the Brian Entin shorts. He might come up with a new video while we're live here, but we'll keep an eye on that. The chat does a good job at keeping me informed when that happens. So the next video on the docket is this.
So as we get back to the Guthrie investigation now, I guess the headline today is that they ran the glove that was found near the scene through the FBI database and no match came back. But there is some activity and there are more leads to look into. So in terms of where the investigation goes from here, let's check in with our team in Tucson. It's News Nation's Jessica Cartalia this hour, who's reporting live there from Nancy's home. So that was obviously a disappointment to some who've been watching, but like I say, there's more to it. So what's the latest from there?
Look, Connell, it was a stretch to begin with. We were hoping that it might lead to something significant, and unfortunately, it kind of sounds like a dead end at this point. But a short time ago, two cars arrived here outside of Nancy Guthrie's home. They parked. They went around back toward the garage, carrying a briefcase, back toward the back entrance. They also went over to a neighbor's house, and they were looking at one of those motion security lights. As you mentioned, now what they were doing is still unclear. We're working to determine that. But as you mentioned, we learned that the results of that DNA taken from a glove that resembled the one on the Ring camera that we saw here turned out to not have a match in that DNA database, CODIS, right? Since a match wasn't detected, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely a dead end, but investigators will now have to go to genealogy database.
So now they go to the next layer, the genealogical testing.
Is an attempt to work back toward the suspect that way. However, if that suspect is not from here, possibly in Mexico or has family members in Mexico, it may not find a match at all. Additionally, we have confirmed that the FBI is going to many different gun stores here in the Tucson area. They have 40 photos of suspects. They also have 40 names.
So here's the question, though, for a signal sniffer. Someone said it's pinged. But wouldn't that just mean, though, it can ping on any? Well, the surgical nurse in the chat says they don't ping. That's first and foremost. But secondly, would it not get a signal from any pacemaker, period? Right? Or is it just somehow tuned into what Nancy's would be? I would imagine it's any pacemaker, right?
Asking employees, hey, do you recognize any of these names? Have you seen any of these people coming in here? Checking receipts as well, trying to determine if someone purchased a firearm at one of those stores months ago. Additionally, Walmart here in the Arizona area and Tucson area specifically also sells guns, not at every location, but at some specifically. Pima County Sheriff's Office now says all members have been cleared of suspects, members of the Guthrie family. We're also learning that investigators are working with Walmart management specifically to develop leads because that backpack the suspect is wearing, we know, was sold at Walmart. So
what do you think about the backpack being sold at Walmart? Is it possible it got resold at some sort of thrift store? Is it possible it was a gift? Is it possible they went out of state to buy that backpack? Is it possible it was bought on Amazon? Because that's the thing. Just because something is sold exclusively at Amazon, or excuse me, at Walmart, doesn't necessarily mean it can't be resold, right? It might be resold on Amazon or something, which would make it trickier. But what are your thoughts about the backpack, chat? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Walmart coming into play, Guthrie family being off the hook coming into play, description of the suspect wearing that Walmart backpack as well. So a lot of different things happening today, Connell, as far as new leads that we're hearing about. Nothing as of this point.
All right, Jess. Jessica Cartalia is live for us in Tucson.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation.
So Chris Cuomo is always poof in your face.
We're joined now by Chip Massey, who's a retired FBI hostage negotiator. He's here with me in the studio in New York. And of course, Geraldo Rivera joins in as well at this hour, News Nation's correspondent at large.
Geraldo.
Chip, good to see you again. Geraldo, start us off on the headline of the day. I mean, like, we had built it up so much in our reporting and our conversations. Oh, maybe there'll be a DNA match on these gloves, but apparently not. How much of a setback do you think that is?
Well, it's obviously a disappointment, a bitter disappointment. We expect, and I still expect, forensics, Connell, to solve this case. But I think the biggest story of the day, and I do believe that it's still underreported by media generally, is that the no match goes, to corroborate what I'm about to say. The 3 children of Nancy Guthrie have now all been cleared.
Yep.
The children and their spouses are innocent. They are not guilty. And I don't think there's been enough concentration on that point. They've been, in many ways, smeared. Some of it, obviously, necessarily as the probe took place. But now we look back between the alibis, the old-fashioned way, and the DNA, the sheriff was confident enough to say, quote, "The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious." And the sheriff goes on to say that they are victims. They are not perpetrators. And I think that the media, we all have a responsibility to emphasize that point. I think also the appeal, Connell, Savannah's appeal on Sunday was something that people should take another look at and look at the cost that this crime has had on the family of Nancy Guthrie. Savannah's face is etched in misery as she pleads to to do the right thing to the kidnappers. So that's where I stand. It's very melancholy, the state of play in this, but the holdout hope. Yes, or no, there was no DNA match, but that doesn't mean with all this genealogical DNA, the genetic testing and so forth, there's still technology to be deployed, and I still have hope, Connell.
That, one of the things that brings up, Geraldo, and I'm come back to Chip, who's here in the studio with me, is that if, and you should weigh in as well on your reaction to the no match and the DNA, which is the headline of the day. It was about 24 hours ago, was Geraldo's point. We were talking about it this time yesterday, that the family was cleared. Again, like he said, that's a big headline. But the plea, that personal plea from Savannah Guthrie was very, very personal. I know you've dealt with the psychology of criminal minds in your career. You wonder if they can be appealed to, whoever's out there in that way, that the person seeing that might actually say, all right, you know what, maybe I should do the quote unquote right thing.
Well, that's certainly the hope, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And like Geraldo said, that you see in her face, you see the anguish, you see the pain that they've been through. I mean, it is a hell. And so the fact that Savannah's there saying you can still do the right thing, that's, there is a connection that she is trying to establish here. And that needs to be picked up by the captor. The other thing about this is that, what's so great, like Geraldo referred to, is that we have so many leads coming in.
Yeah.
So much is coming in from the American people. And that's what's so important, because we can lose sight, with the whole thing of misinformation, let's focus on the family. Well, let's focus on.
Can you believe this? Day 17. Holy mackerel. They say it takes 17 days to break a habit.
On, what DNA didn't result in. Let's focus in on what we know. Let's stay on the facts. And if the American people stay on that, we're going to get some better leads.
Do those facts include, or do you exclude, your background as a hostage negotiator? I'll get Geraldo in on this in a moment, but I'll just stick with you, Chip, for now. These notes that have come in to...
And again, so if things go into another country, that does open it up to new parts of the government. The State Department, for example, they focus exclusively on foreign affairs. FBI can focus on things outside the country. So can the CIA, right? So that's all a possibility. I mean, TMZ is reporting that they keep on getting these ransom notes and they're saying, oh, someone says they saw her with a group of people in Mexico. Do I believe it? No, I don't believe it. Do I rule it out 100%? No, perhaps not 100%, but I don't believe what TMZ is saying about it at this point, or I don't believe whoever's sending these notes to TMZ. TMZ is trying to make it seem like it's something, but I don't really think it is.
TMZ, I think there's 4 of them now. Chris Cuomo had Harvey Levin on last night talking about it, and what stands out? Well, the idea that this guy in the last note claims that he saw Nancy with them, and it was south of the border and all that kind of stuff. You see it on the last one on February 16th. So do you, when you say stick to the facts, talk about what's coming in, is this part of it, or is this something with your experience you say, I don't think so?
That's for the investigators to suss out and for the family to see what is and what is not able to be verifiable. So important. But what's great is family off the board now. Yeah. More resources are able to be focused on these other lanes that are going to yield more investigative results and tips.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your...
Some people say, I guess, 30 days to break a bad habit, but I've heard 17. It takes 17 days to get it out of your system. Now, I would say 90 days to truly be good, whether it's an addiction, a person, etc. 90 seems to be a benchmark as well.
Investigators reportedly have a list of names, dozens of names, as the manhunt heats up for Nancy Guthrie and the masked figure caught on camera at her doorstep. So what does this mean for the desperate search for the 84-year-old mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie? The Pima County Sheriff's Department is now clearing the family while hinting at new developments unfolding behind the scenes. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
And I'd seen Law and Crime. They're going over some other interesting cases. There was a woman who's a social worker that got arrested for SAing a kid with a gun. And I was like, what? And then the woman was pretty too, so that added to the story. Was pretty popular. They talked about Epstein too. But if you're coming in here, please remember to like the video if you haven't already, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I go live every night talking about true crime and current events.
All right, let's get into it. We are learning some new information on where and who investigators may be looking toward as they search for Nancy Guthrie. So let's dive into this new reporting and also the update we just got in from law enforcement. It appears that that glove, which did offer a glimmer of hope that it could be connected to the case of Nancy Guthrie, it didn't match DNA profiles in the FBI database called CODIS. Now, the gloves were found on the side of a road in a field about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house. Now, the FBI previously said in a statement to us that the gloves appeared to match the gloves that you see the suspect wearing in the surveillance video that was taken on Nancy Guthrie's front steps. A big line in the statement we got from the Pima County Sheriff today, though, is, quote, additional DNA evidence was found at the residence, and that is also being examined. It's unclear what that evidence is and just how long it may take to get tested. It's also important to note with...
So it looks like Law and Crime Network here is actually behind, because Brian Entin already reported on this, for one. Now, what they didn't do yet is the genealogy stuff. So that can still come, right? But the CODIS database came back nothing.
CODIS, the FBI's database, that has people in it who have been convicted of crimes, people who have been arrested, people who have had run-ins with the law. So just because it doesn't match in CODIS, that is still a very small portion of the population. The FBI appears to be looking at gun stores for clues. Reporter Brian Entin of News Nation, he has been all over this story on the ground in Tucson since the very beginning. He is reporting that agents have gone to several Tucson area gun stores with a list of 40 people, allegedly, including pictures of those individuals. Agents are asking if any of the people on their list went into the stores in.
And before I go on, people are mentioning that it looks like he might be left-handed. Montana mentioned that in the chat. And I did notice he does seem to be reaching for things left hand first. So yeah, maybe he is left-handed.
Question. The Pima County Sheriff says that they are canvassing businesses and showing the doorbell video to just see if anyone looks familiar who came into these stores. The masked person who is spotted on Nancy Guthrie's front steps in doorbell video appears to be armed with a weapon at their waist. Now, the type of gun, we have been told, does not match the holster. The holster itself, that appears to be relatively cheap option if you're in the market for a holster, a $10 one at certain Walmarts. And it's been reported that several Walmarts in the Tucson area carry those particular holsters in stock. Now, speaking of Walmart, that store could be very key in this investigation because law enforcement say that the man's clothing may be items from Walmart, that they're items that are available at Walmart, but not exclusively sold there. However, the backpack that the suspect is wearing, that is an item that you can only find at Walmart, and that could be huge. I did reach out to Walmart for comment on this story to see if they'll share with us the type of information that they're providing law enforcement. We haven't heard back. Law enforcement has confirmed they're working with Walmart management to identify and isolate the individual who purchased the backpack. Now, it is unclear who is on the supposed list that agents have come up with that have names and pictures reportedly that they are showing to gun stores. At least 2 people at this point in this investigation have been detained, but no arrests have been made. Now, there are reports that evidence is still being processed in connection to the raid that happened on Friday night at a home about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house. And then you had that dramatic traffic stop that was made out of Culver's nearby. NBC News has said that law enforcement is leaning away from the people who have been detained thus far in the case. Hey guys, real quick, I want to talk about a huge partner that we have here at Law and Crime, a huge partner from 2 search warrants executed last week. Now, the individuals who were questioned, they've been released, no arrests have been made, but the sheriff also says you can expect to see similar activity moving forward. So that could include more raids like we saw on Friday night last week and that traffic stop near the Culver's fast food restaurant. Now, earlier this week, there was a report from News Nation that law enforcement's using what's called a signal sniffer on a helicopter to try and locate Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker. Remember, her pacemaker disconnected from her iPhone in the early hours of the morning, February 1st. And with the timeline that was given to us by law enforcement, that was the last moment that they have contact with her when that pacemaker disconnects around 2:30 in the morning. So this helicopter was flying low, according to reporters, going very slow over Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood. And that's reportedly because this signal sniffer technology tries to pick up frequencies. Maybe it's a cell phone or in this case, a pacemaker. Today, law enforcement said that they're attempting to locate Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker and they're working with the pacemaker's manufacturer. Now, the sheriff is revealing more information about his decision to go public and state that the Guthrie family and their spouses have been cleared and they are not suspects in this case. And he is also going on the record saying that they should be seen as victims of this crime. Now, the sheriff put out this statement on Monday where he made it clear that the Guthrie family, they don't have anything to do with what happened to Nancy. Based off the investigation, the sheriff said, quote, "To be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses."
And again, I don't really buy this by Sheriff Nanos. He could just be saying this, but it doesn't really mean they're off the hook. I think until there actually is a suspect, how can you be ruling people out? That's what I would say.
Has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. The sheriff also went on to criticize people who have speculated, or in some cases, professionals who have even reported that the Guthrie family may be involved in this case, saying, quote, "To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it's cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple." Please, I'm begging you, the media, to honor your profession and report with some sense of compassion and professionalism, end quote. Now, the sheriff is expanding on this statement on Tuesday. He told TV station KOLD in Tucson that the Guthrie family was actually cleared within the first few days of this investigation. And he went on to say that they were very thorough with the Guthrie family.
I don't know how they know that, though. I mean, the biggest blunder the sheriff made to me was opening the crime scene too soon. And that's a big blunder. Opening it up before the FBI even got there, and now saying that they're all cleared. I mean, I don't know. I don't really buy it.
Law enforcement expert will tell you, and if you follow true crime, you often see cases where investigations begin by looking at the people closest to the person considered a victim, or the person in this case who is missing. And in this situation, as we have talked about many times, Nancy Guthrie, she takes an Uber to Annie Guthrie's home, her daughter, her eldest daughter, Savannah's older sister. She has dinner, she has games, and then a member of the Guthrie family drove Nancy back to her house. And then it's believed a couple hours later, based on the timeline given to us by law enforcement, that is when someone entered the home and took Nancy Guthrie, and the investigation has gone on ever since. Now, we have seen law enforcement go to Annie Guthrie's house plenty of times and process the scene there. One of her vehicles was taken and processed, which the sheriff said was just standard evidence gathering. And then we've also seen law enforcement go back to Nancy Guthrie's house multiple times.
The interesting part about that would be, okay, we heard Annie Guthrie's car was impounded. Did she ever get it back? We didn't hear a word about that, did we?
This is what the sheriff said about the investigation into the family, making sure people know that they aren't just clearing them, but an investigation was done to prove that they had nothing to do with this. He told KOLD, quote, "We talked to them. We took their phones. We took their computers. I mean, we did everything. We processed their vehicles. We processed their homes. They are victims." Now, it is unclear beneath the surface whether anything changed in this case, prompting the sheriff to go on the record with the clearance of the Guthries, or whether it was just in response to the public speculation that has really been a cloud over this case from the very beginning.
And I wanted to say to whoever has her or knows where she is that it's never too late. And you're not lost or alone. And it is never too late to do the right thing.
I want to talk about Savannah Guthrie's message that she put out on social media Sunday night. And it appears that in this message, and you can just see how emotional Savannah is, how strong she is being in this situation. I mean, it's a nightmare nobody would ever want to go through, and she has been living it now for 16 days. And in that video, she appears to be speaking directly to whoever took her mom, whether it's one person, whether it's a group of people. This message, it does appear raw and emotional, and it appears unscripted, but some people have been wondering, in these messages put out by the Guthrie family on social media, Savannah has more than 1 million followers on social media, are there code words in there? What type of advice are they getting from perhaps the FBI before they put these messages out there?
And again, if I took her and she was alive, I'd probably want to go to Mexico. I mean, the hardest part would be getting through the border, right? But once I'm there, I think I would feel safer than if I was in America. But that's just me.
We're going to be talking about that with Lisa Miller, who's a retired detective who will join us here in just a moment. Now, not only are investigators combing through terrain, they've been combing through homes, they have searched vehicles, trying to find Nancy Guthrie, but they're also combing through tens of thousands of leads that have been called in from the public. NBC News is reporting that investigators are now working through 40 to 50,000 leads, tips that have been called in this case. That is a major increase from the 18,000 that had come in around the time the video of the armed individual was released, posted on X by FBI Director Kash Patel. Now, the FBI says they were able to get this video shortly before it was released using techniques that can find files that at first don't seem to exist. And in this case, they found it on the servers for the doorbell camera company Nest. I talked with retired FBI Special Agent Dan Bruner Really interesting point that he brought up, because so many of us on the outside, we have been looking at that video, trying to just dissect it. And often we see law enforcement lean on the public in cases by putting out those images, just like we're seeing in this case. But he was telling me that he believes it was a mistake to make this video public when it went public. And this is why.
This put the advantage by releasing that video. Kash Patel decided to release that video for whatever reason, public relations reasons, to say the FBI is doing a great job. We don't need that sort of public relations win. But Kash Patel decided to do it. He then gave the advantage back to the criminal. Why? Because once that criminal knows, what is the criminal going to do? Get rid of the backpack, get rid of the face mask, get rid of the jacket, get rid of the gun. All pieces of clear evidence that a U.S. attorney would want in court, or state attorney, a DA, would want in court to prove this was recovered at his home. Here's the video of him, disabling the Ring doorbell camera. That individual now also can flee. He could be on the other side of the planet at this time, because he says, oh no, they have me on video. You're giving the advantage to them. This completely was a huge headache to investigators. It didn't give them the opportunity. Then on top of all of this, before they were able to really dissect the backpack and analyze it and figure out this was the make, these are the stores, this would take at least 4, 5, 6 days. In that time, in those first 3 days, 14,000 tips were given. 14,000 tips were provided, inundating the FBI with tips. And that required every single one of those tips had to be vetted, had to be worked out. If the investigators had their time to vet it out, okay, we're looking for an individual who's 5'10", who's wearing this type of backpack. We know that this backpack is sold at this store. That would have been 14,000, would have been much less number of tips, and would not have inundated the system. Those FBI agents in Arizona, those analysts, those support employees, they're working their butts off. And by releasing that video too soon, Kash Patel created an inordinate amount of extra work for that case team, where they don't need to be doing that.
Now, we're also seeing...
I can see the point he's making there, right? If you are the FBI and local law enforcement, and you could do all that work, right? You can try to look at the backpack. You can try to look at the gloves, the balaclava mask. And okay, without the public's help, let's see if we can figure out where those things were bought, right? But instead, since you opened it up to the public, now there's thousands of leads to be going through. Some might be worthwhile, but many more are probably worthless. So I can see what he means by that.
Money being raised from the outside. You have on the inside, the FBI offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to Nancy or the person or people who took her. The FBI once again tweeting out her missing persons poster today with that $100,000 number. Now, the FBI's official suspect description, by the way, for that person who they are calling a suspect on Nancy Guthrie's front steps, it's a man standing between 5'9" and 5'10" with an average build. This is a GoFundMe that's been launched to raise money to buy 1 Bitcoin to pay off the person who has sent multiple emails to TMZ claiming they know where Nancy is. The most recent email, TMZ says, its 4th email came in yesterday on Monday.
Is this Nancy's husband here? Or excuse me, Savannah's husband here? Maybe.
Now, the FBI hasn't commented on whether that information is credible, whether those emails that TMZ have received, whether they're credible. This is different from the alleged ransom notes that TMZ and other media outlets received early on. This is from someone claiming that they know where Nancy Guthrie is, claiming that Nancy Guthrie is in Mexico, and they want 1 Bitcoin. Well, they actually now want more than 1 Bitcoin to hand that information over. So this GoFundMe, and I will tell you, it's only raised $1,500 of the $65,000 that it has listed as a goal, but it is raising money to buy a Bitcoin. The emailer, though, who has sent those emails to TMZ, they're now asking for more than 1 Bitcoin. After the FBI raised the amount of reward money to $100,000, this emailer called back or emailed back to TMZ saying that they want $50,000 paid up front for information. 1 Bitcoin, by the way, right now is going for more than $67,000. There's also a Milwaukee personal injury lawyer who's putting his name and money into the mix here. His name is Michael Hoopy, and he posted that he is going to offer a $100,000 reward through Crime Stoppers in this case. Now, President Trump He is also weighing in on this case. He has spoken to Savannah Guthrie. They obviously know each other because she's covered him during his time in the White House. Spoke to her in the first couple days after Nancy was taken, offering federal support, and we've certainly seen that. Then you have on February 6th, which is 5 days after Nancy Guthrie was taken. He was on board Air Force One, and he told media there that they had some strong clues in the case. But again, at this point, no arrest has been made. And now President Trump is issuing a strong warning to whoever took Nancy Guthrie that they will face the most severe consequences, including the death penalty, if Nancy Guthrie is not returned alive.
He'll say that. But again, remember Trump was saying the FBI and the DOJ gave us something huge. And this was what? Almost 2 weeks ago now. Well, apparently not, right? Apparently there was nothing.
If you have information on Nancy Guthrie, you can contact the Pima County Sheriff at 520-351-4900. And you can also contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or go to tips.fbi.gov. Join us now to talk more about this case and these newest developments. We just got in retired detective and former chief investigator Lisa Miller. Thank you for being with us here on Law and Crime. So on the surface, you see this statement.
This is a new person here. I've never seen this person speak. So let's see what they have to say for themselves.
Match and CODIS. There was always a chance that this glove might not matter to this investigation. What stands out to you about the wording that we're seeing here from the Pima County Sheriff related to the results or lack thereof when it comes to this glove?
Well, in the face of it, I can see where it'd be deflating for the people that are watching this really interesting, convoluted case. However, what I take from it is the FBI's CODIS system, there are very strict standards about uploading a profile to CODIS. Forensic unknowns, and this sample is a male unknown sample, there's extremely strict guidelines about uploading a forensic unknown to CODIS. So what that tells me, if this forensic male unknown sample did not match anything in the house, but we know from the reporting that it was able to be uploaded in the CODIS, there is something on this glove that connects it to that crime scene. This strange item that was found, 2 miles away that just looks like the glove in the video, they can't upload it to CODIS as a forensic unknown based on visual similarities and it being 2 miles away. There has to be a connection. Is that connection Nancy Guthrie's DNA? We don't know. Is that connection the plant material that may be found on the glove? We don't know that. Nor really should we, but I think we can glean from it that it is definitely tied to the crime scene since it was able to be put into CODIS.
Yeah, because, in the statement that we received from the FBI, and when they put the line out there that says it appears to match, because there were these 16 gloves that were found, and they said the majority of them were just, ones that were thrown away and almost littered by people who were searching, which I know that part of it got a lot of attention. But the FBI, just in stories that we cover, they're very purposeful typically with what they say. When you get a press release from the FBI, seems very thought out.
So as far as we know, the gloves, no DNA match. The next level here, though, is the genealogy test. And I imagine they're going to test the DNA in the home, too, using the genealogy method. I guess it takes a little longer, but the FBI CODIS, no match.
And to put in the line, it appears to match the glove, something along the lines of appears to match the glove worn by the person seen in the surveillance video. That stood out because it just felt like, is it because it's this latex kind of glove, which a lot of people have, it appears to match, or is it different than the 15 other ones that you found that you were able to say, well, this is associated with, the people who had been searching for Nancy Guthrie?
Right. Words matter to the FBI. When they put something out, a public statement, it's notable that they put out a public statement saying that they had found DNA on a glove and they had found a glove they believed to be associated with this case. That alone is notable. But the phrasing is definitely, they don't have some intern running their accounts that put this out. They put care into what they say. But this visual match alone most definitely did not allow this glove, this DNA on this glove, to be put into the CODIS system.
And we note as well, I know people have talked about how CODIS, it's really only a small portion of the population that is in CODIS. It's people who have been convicted of crimes or arrested, had run-ins with the law.
Right. And they want that CODIS database to be pretty condensed because they don't let just anyone put their information in there, right? They want you to be very probably at least committing the crime, if not very likely to be a suspect. So that's what I think Maureen was saying that the other day, but that would make sense too.
So, that doesn't.
Oh, and by the way, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Super chats are a great way to get questions answered. Another good way to support the channel is memberships. And I go live every night talking about true crime and current events. And I use my experience with mental health, addiction, and narcissistic abuse, and I apply it and give my unique perspective using those things. And there's an awesome flock of black sheep here too.
Necessarily rule it out maybe from having a potential impact down the road. We'll see. They also talk about in this statement saying that, quote, there is additional DNA evidence that was found at the residence, and that too is being analyzed. And I remember back in the beginning, first couple of days of this investigation, the sheriff talked about like fast tracking some DNA to be analyzed in Phoenix, and nothing seemed to come of that. But now saying that they have more evidence there, and I know they've searched that home over and over and over again. I guess how much confidence would you have that even that glimmer of hope could mean something, knowing that to this point, it just doesn't seem like any, and I know there's a lot of things that maybe aren't being said publicly, but at least from the public's view, it seems like a lot, there just haven't been returns on this DNA evidence that they've been analyzing.
Right. So I'm not going to put a whole lot of hope into what they have recovered from this crime scene. Here's the thing with DNA, and I mean, it's amazing. Juries want to see the science when cases like this go to trial, right? Science is very important in cases like this. However, one thing that we really need to realize is we live in a dirty, dirty world. And by dirty, I don't mean unclean. Dirty, I mean the people that come into your home doing work, electricians, plumbers, the whatevers, the cleaning lady, whatever that may be, they're slopping off thousands of skin cells, a day. So the people that come in and out, and DNA is really, it's not as fragile as a lot of people think. So in a controlled environment, like inside a home, someone's DNA can last for an extended period of time. So I don't want to put a whole lot of hope into this. Yes, it needs to be tested. Yes, this is a case now where it's every stone needs to be overturned. The workers are doing that, I think.
So I'd like to ask Lisa here what she thinks the best bet is. What are we looking for here? The person where they bought the backpack, where they bought the balaclava mask? What do you think is our best bet?
As we're seeing, they're starting to go in various different directions looking at that. But I don't put a lot of hope in it, but we can hold on to that. You never know. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
When it comes to some of the videos that Savannah Guthrie has put on her Instagram, and we've all seen them, and the most recent one, I mean, she's just incredibly emotional, and you understand that, and just you can see that is real. That's not acting, exhaustion on the face. And there have been questions about, and the FBI said like they will, advise people in these situations, but there are questions about like code words. There was one where if a Silence of the Lambs reference, people have said that they can hear in one of the initial videos with the line that she said. And then in this one, people are trying to piece together. I mean, typically in these cases, and this is the most uncommon of cases as we've seen, but like how likely is it that this is not just as authentic as the emotion is, the word choice and the framing of it, and particular words in there may be code words trying to send a message somewhere?
I think what we're seeing in these last two messages from Savannah Guthrie, it's seemingly the Savannah Guthrie that we all know from seeing her on TV, right? It's not like these very scripted early messages that her and the family put out. What we can talk about in these latest messages, and especially this last one, is I won't necessarily say that there's code words, but I don't doubt for a second, based on what I heard, that the BAU, some profiler is having her letting her know, hey, this is what we need to do. Here's the intent of our message, but we want you to come through in this one. We want you, Savannah, the one that everybody watches on TV, to reach out and try to touch this particular person, and this is the message we want to convey. So maybe not a code word, but a very scripted message. And in listening to her, it's like she was speaking to a someone. So have they given her information behind the scenes that we are not privy to and shouldn't be privy to on what the profilers are believing maybe behind this person, the type of personality behind the person that took her? Are they trying to peel off maybe somebody if they have belief that it's a group of people, more than one? And we know there was a statement from the FBI director where he listed persons in his messaging. He didn't say a person. So it is just possible that this messaging is maybe to the weak link. The person that took Nancy Guthrie out of this house is, I mean, that's a monstrous act. I think we can all agree whoever took her from that home, put that fear in her, that particular person doesn't really have a good heart shining through. But perhaps the FBI has a reason to believe someone's involved that maybe has some humanity, that a person and a message like Savannah delivered in this last one can reach and touch.
Because I think too, I mean, even for the worst, and there are some monsters that'll never have a stroke of humanity in them for sure. And I'm sure in your career, you've seen that. But then you also think, you know, if this person's concerned about getting caught, I mean, this continues to be the headline story across the country. I mean, and it is every single day. People want to know. And there are a lot of tips coming in and a lot of tips that may not lead to anywhere, but you have to think the pressure that person, wherever they are, you know, whatever they're watching, that they have to be feeling that a little bit. I mean, even you have
either that, or if they're like the BTK killer, they're loving it. They're loving all the attention that it's getting them. The only part they don't like is maybe it's not giving them personally the fuel. That's what got BTK caught. BTK stands for bind, torture, kill. What happened was they were attributing some of the deaths or the murders that he committed to somebody else. And he didn't like that. He wanted the credit to the BTK killer. It would give him a form of narcissistic supply. And this also contributed to him getting caught. So I wonder, in this case, what version are we looking at here? Are we looking at someone that kind of loves this? Are we looking at somebody that's kind of like really nervous and scared because it didn't go as planned? I don't know. I don't really know what we're looking at here.
The president of the United States talking about it pretty, you know, a couple times, you know, so, right. You know, with that part, the Walmart part of this, I think I want to ask you about, because I think this is really interesting because we know the backpack is a Walmart backpack. Mm-hmm. And then there's a report out that the holster, which doesn't really go with the gun, that's like a $10 holster that you can get at a Walmart. And then you have clothing items that appear to be potential Walmart products as well. Like someone bought them at Walmart. The clothing itself is not exclusive to Walmart, like the backpack. But I mean, you think of someone, if you're, you know, hitting all these, you know, this person has bought this, and this over a certain period of time, that would lead you to that individual. Like, what actually is the process of working with someone like Walmart and pulling that together to then try to identify who may have bought these items with it?
This is a good question by Chris Stewart here. And this is Chris Stewart. He's on Law and Crime Network. I really like him. I think like Brian Entin and Maureen, they're the A team, but I think Chris Stewart here is pretty good too. But this is a good question. What are they going to do when they say, okay, the backpack was bought at Walmart, now what? And let's see what Lisa Miller says.
In, you know, a certain amount of time.
Right. Well, unfortunately, it's another one of these time-intensive chores that law enforcement has to do. But they go to corporate. They may start with the stores in the area and go to their local management and ask them to start running these codes and see what their sales, you know, their point of sales are. And they're going to see if somebody came in, if they bought all these together, if they bought single pieces, if there was repeat purchases, if they paid credit card, if they paid cash, and they'll start pulling video and comparing video to these things. If they don't find anything in that immediate area, then they definitely will go to corporate and say, hey, can you start pulling this in this region for us? And then that becomes even more time intensive. But that's why, you know, leaders collaborate. Good leaders collaborate. most agencies, the state agency I worked for before at the Attorney General's office, we didn't have the resources, and we surely didn't have the budget to go out with the tools and the manpower that the FBI is able to devote. You have analysts that are going through all these sales of these items that we've been talking about. So, I love the collaboration. I think law enforcement should continue to collaborate, and leadership should continue to work together for things like this.
Yeah. And it's easy for me to, on the outside, I've never been in law enforcement, to, and I haven't, tried to be critical of anything because I don't know what it's like to be part of this investigation, let alone run one. At the same time, we have had experts come on and say that they look at this person on the surveillance video and it doesn't look like, the sophisticated criminal that we all might, have thought that it could be. And yet it's been 16 days. There are 400 FBI agents working on this. The president wants stuff done. And
again, going by body language. Yeah. I mean, you think, and maybe you think with movies, right? When someone's a professional, they just feel more assertive and sure of themselves in their movements, perhaps. And that would make you think, oh yeah, they're more professional. And it didn't really seem that way with this guy. This guy's body language was kind of weird, kind of awkward. I don't know if it was using or not, but it did seem kind of awkward.
This person has still not been. Are you surprised, I guess, at this point, now entering week 3, that...
Oh, Sweet Caroline changed the name over there. You almost tricked me. But thank you very much for this. The burglar. Look how he moves, never stretches or clenches his right hand, and he favors his left leg on the step, and when pulling the weeds, stroke maybe. No, I don't mean to laugh at a stroke. I don't think so, though, Sweet Caroline. I think he might be left-handed. I think he was awkward, but I don't think a stroke. But that's just me. I think the person to ask would be Bella, the surgical nurse. But thank you for that, Sweet Caroline. Bella, what do you think about that? Did you think stroke when you were looking at that?
There hasn't been an answer to this case?
I want to say yes. I am, because there's been so much attention to it. The attention of the nation and even the world's focusing in on it. And we can all look at this, what appears to be a criminal doofus at this front door. But I mean, the fact is he did some planning. I suspect and if he was involved.
See, all the FBI are calling this guy dumb, stupid, a doofus. But hey, this dumb, stupid doofus seems to be defeating everyone right now. He seems to be eluding everyone. So what does that say about everyone else? That's what I would say. You got to be careful calling the criminals so stupid when they're the ones, as of now, that have completely avoided capture.
Someone else did some pre-attack planning also. He shows some organization, but we also need to take a look. Here comes the ransoms. Those happen immediately after these ransom letters that went to some local news outlets and, of course, TMZ. That indicates, someone with a little more sophistication, organized behavior. And I know what we're seeing, especially in Europe, we are seeing organized criminal gangs, organized criminals, reaching out to petty criminals and having them do the actual taking. But then in that case, you have this structured, what we usually see as the transaction of the ransom. I mean, ransom, kidnapping, that's a business transaction, depending on who's behind it. It's always transactional, and there's a dialogue. And I thought we were going to see more of that in this case, and then it stopped. But having said that, there's a lot of reasons for abductions. It's not just a financial reason. So it's going to be interesting when we find out what exactly occurred, and maybe if we get to a why.
Right. And it's because that's like the, of course, the why of where is Nancy Guthrie and who took her, like those are the big questions. But then it's just, to take an 84-year-old woman.
Sidebar. So anyone who's seen The Sopranos, there's a lot of breakdowns of The Sopranos on YouTube. Well, one of them said, was the FBI really the bad guys of The Sopranos? And at first glance, you might think, oh, that's ridiculous. But then when you actually watch the video, you're like, oh yeah, they were kind of jerks. Like the FBI was jerks. They were talking pretty crappily about all of them all. When Adriana got killed, they just didn't care. And it's like, they're acting kind of psychopathic as well here. But the reason I'm bringing that up is you see that kind of attitude with all the FBI too, by the way, right? You kind of see them talking down to and belittling. It's kind of like a little bit of arrogance.
Who has health issues in need of medication. It's just something you typically don't see. I know there was a report earlier this week that the sheriff kind of pushed back on, where a local outlet in Arizona was saying that they're being told that the working theory is that this was a burglary that then turned into a kidnapping for whatever reason. When you look at this case, where are you on, and there's so much we don't know, but just from what we know of what this person looked like, the way that they appear to have entered the home, the fact that Nancy Guthrie is not a typical target, age-wise that we see in kidnapping cases. I mean, how likely is it that this was something where maybe they entered the house thinking it was a burglary, then you interact with Nancy Guthrie, and then you decide to take her?
Yeah, so nighttime burglars, usually they've cased the place, if you will. They've done this surveillance, they've checked the neighborhoods, they know when people are home, and they don't usually go into residences overnight because they know people are there. Could it have been something that went bad? You can't rule it out. And investigators have to keep an open mind as they go along the way. But on the face of it, it doesn't look like our normal burglary gone bad. Burglary gone bad is somebody goes in, and if they see somebody inside, they flee or they cause harm inside. They don't take an elderly woman with them suddenly. That's not what we see. So I would have to, using experience and what we've seen in the past, say it just doesn't fit. But this case seems to be a lot of square pegs trying to fit them in these round holes. It's convoluted and messy.
Yeah, it's one of those where like I can't remember one that has just been, so many people are confused by it. Experts, certainly the internet, people who have no experience investigating these cases as well. We've had these detainments, and it's been the one gentleman near the U.S.-Mexico border seems like he wasn't involved based on what the sheriff has said. Then you have this raid of a home about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house, and then you have the traffic stop at a Culver's, and no arrests at this point. But they say that expect more of these types of activity. What does that tell you about where we are in this investigation? That we may see, whether it's tonight, tomorrow night, SWAT team goes out again, they execute a search warrant at a home, and then we see another detainment, but yet have no arrest.
Hey, I hope we see more. It tells me that the policing is working. The boots on the ground, they're seeing things, whether it's from, the FBI's work with the cell phone analysis, the analysis of the cell sites in the region, whatever they're looking at, these pieces of information they're gleaning, they're acting on it. They're getting information and acting. And it's not a bad thing to take someone in custody when they're getting enough information, whether it's a state warrant.
So the update is they put the DNA through the CODIS system, the FBI database CODIS, and there's been no hits. No hits on the glove and no hits on the DNA found in the house. That's round one. The next round is the genealogy test. That's next.
Search warrant or a federal search warrant, they're articulating something to a judge that is letting this judge sign off on this warrant, granting them access to a home. So it's substantial. So that tells me they're gathering a lot of good information to be able to execute search warrants inside a home. The home it's our area of, safety. Judges just don't allow police officers into homes on a whim. So I like it. Keep digging, keep working. I want to see more of that. They have the resources down there to follow up on a multitude of leads at once. Shake the bush. Let's see what falls out.
Yeah, and it seems like foot is on the gas, and it's going to continue to be until they find an answer to what happened to Nancy Guthrie. Lisa Miller, retired detective, former chief investigator. Great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
If you have information on Nancy Guthrie.
Apparently I was mistaken. I thought there was a different Sweet Caroline. Sweet Caroline's my lucky name in the chat then, apparently. So thank you to the new Sweet Caroline. But we also missed the old Sweet Caroline too.
contact the Pima County Sheriff. 520-351-4900 is the local number. And you can also contact the FBI and remain anonymous. 1-800-CALL-FBI is the phone number, or you can head over to the website and submit an anonymous tip at tips.fbi.gov. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we are now streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart.
So now we're going to go watch Maureen. And by the way, I didn't see it, but Cat Sablon Blonde was saying people were targeting her. I didn't see that, but if you were, anyone out there, don't do that. The flock of black sheep has to be good to one another. And for the very most part, they are. So, again, just in case you were thinking about it.
This woman, I don't know, flagged that Savannah's book, which was released in February of 2024, discussed a game she used to play as a kid with her cousin, and it was a kidnapping game involving Nancy. So we pulled the audio that Savannah did of her book. In it, you're going to hear her talk about her cousin Terry, who was, she said, like an aunt to her growing up. Terry's 20 years older than Savannah, so Terry would be 74 right now. But listen to this.
About once a year in the summertime, Cousin Terry orchestrated a kidnapping of my sister and me. It went down like this. The cousins would visit for a few days at our house in Tucson, and then, on the morning they were to leave, Terry would wake us up early, shushing us in the pre-dawn darkness as we made our escape. We would all pile into her rickety station wagon and head north, the sky streaking with bright oranges and pinks as the sun rose over the colorless desert landscape. Somewhere between Phoenix and Tucson.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to rewind this because this is important. This is Savannah's book.
Involving Nancy. Play as a kid with her cousin, and it was a kidnapping game involving Nancy. So we pulled the audio that Savannah did of her book. In it, you're going to hear her talk about her cousin Terry, who was, she said, like an aunt to her.
So apparently in her book, there's some sort of kidnapping game that they played, which is kind of odd, right? And this is real, by the way. Like, it's not some conspiracy. This is really her book. So maybe, like, I'm not ruling this out at all. This is interesting.
Growing up, Terry's 20 years older than Savannah, so Terry would be 74 right now. But listen.
Thank you for the super chat, Allison. This is a very strange family tradition. Yeah, you better believe it's a strange family tradition. I don't know what the hell this is all about. Well, let's see. And thank you very much for the super chat. Please remember to like the video out there and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
To this.
About once a year in the summertime, Cousin Terry orchestrated a kidnapping of my sister and me. It went down like this. The cousins would visit for a few days at our house in Tucson, and then, on the morning they were to leave, Terry would wake us up early, shushing us in the pre-dawn darkness as we made our escape. We would all pile into her rickety station wagon and head north, the sky streaking with bright oranges and pinks as the sun rose over the colorless desert landscape. Somewhere between Phoenix and Tucson, Terry would make a pit stop and let Annie and me call home at a payphone. "Mom, Cousin Terry kidnapped us to take us to her house." My mother would feign shock, protest how terribly she would miss us, then assure us she'd drive up to retrieve us in a few days.
Jonathan, that is just eerie. It's eerie. She released that in 2024, talking about kidnapping and her mom and her sister and Savannah.
This is ridiculous, honestly. Like, what the heck is this? Are we in an episode of The Twilight Zone all of a sudden? I'm very curious Maureen's thoughts on this.
A cousin, I don't know about Cousin Terry. I'm not sure whether Cousin Terry is still in the picture or what, but I'm not suggesting Cousin Terry is behind this, but I'm suggesting that just the mere discussion of kidnapping amongst the Guthrie family
is potentially the kind of thing that could put an idea in somebody's head, could potentially be relevant in trying to track down where somebody first got the notion of a kidnapping and the Guthries. And then you have 3 months ago, Savannah with her mom in Tucson on the Today Show, showing off where they eat, where they hang out. I'm just trying to piece together how this possibly could have even come about, since the idea of kidnapping a mom is unfathomable to most of us.
Yeah, that is, there's a lot of detail to that story. And so, you know, I have a degree in political science and psychology, double major that is, I call it a double useless degree. But some of the things that I do remember out of psychology that really stands out is that there was one woman who had one of the case studies, she had like 14 different personalities, and she had a sister. Well, they were both abused as children. And their mom would do things like when they were, she felt they were being bad, she would put them in a bathtub with scalding water in it and make them sit there. And one developed this incredible, deep psychosis. The other one was pretty normal and just hated her mom. So, you know, this is another reason why I wouldn't rule people out. And I'm not saying people should go down this rabbit hole, but
well, is it one of those things where does art imitate life, or does life imitate art, or a combination?
As law enforcement, I don't rule these things out, because if the sheriff's never heard this before, this would be something that I would definitely look into. But anybody who's read that book, as well as you both have talked about stalkers, and we heard the other individual from, I think it was a BBC or wherever she was, talking about her stalker. People latch onto things in weird ways. And I know, Megan, Maureen, perhaps you have, because you're on TV a lot. And I know, Megan, you probably had these where you get emails from people that say some of the weirdest things, especially if you've been in the FBI. They're like, can you help me out with the FBI? Or people will write and say, hey, can you introduce, I used to host for Sean Hannity on the radio. I was his fill-in host. And people would write me and say, hey, can you get me in touch with Hannity? I got to tell him these things, right? Right. Well, that's not realistic.
Oh, sure.
And so I think when we look at, again, the totality of that show that was on there, it showed where Nancy lives. It talked about Savannah. And then there's this book out. This is kind of a striking coincidence, which does happen sometimes, but a striking coincidence I think needs to be looked into. And I would, if I was investigating this, I would be looking at the people who continuously send TMZ these emails about how they've seen Nancy, right?
Because
yes.
We're going to get to that, because there's another one.
Because that is the individual who very well could be responsible. Again, if these people are that wacky, like you were talking about, or this other woman who was stalked, the person thought they were in a relationship. So if a person, they could be thinking two different things at the same time, and still trying to get some kind of glory out of this. So I would really seriously be looking at that.
Hadn't even considered that.
Yeah.
Had not even considered that the what seems like a fraudster continuously emailing Harvey Levin at TMZ about how I know who the kidnapper is and I want a Bitcoin. Well, half now, half later.
Mm-hmm. And that's the right word for that person, continually getting in touch with TMZ. That's more than likely a fraudster, right? That's, to me, what that is. And in terms of this book here, I mean, generally, I don't usually believe in coincidence. It is just interesting. It's interesting that that's something that she wrote about.
Might actually be the kidnapper looking to insert himself into the discussion, as opposed to the person who wrote the first two $4 million, $6 million demands.
Sure.
That's an interesting thought. I had not even considered that, because the person sounds so farcical. Hold on, put a pin in that, because I do want to come back to that. But while we're on the subject of the potential stalker, we showed this a couple weeks ago with all of you, but let's take a look at that Today Show segment that I've now referenced a couple times that happened 3 months before this.
You guys came here in the 70s and you'd been moving all around. What made you want to stay in Tucson and plant roots?
It's so wonderful. Just the air, the quality of life is laid back and gentle. Yeah, I like to watch the javelina eat my plants.
But the best thing about Tucson is coming home and seeing you guys. Should we raise a glass? Prickly pear margarita? Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Love you.
Love you.
It's eerie now. It's sad. Maureen, you're right, by the way. There the pictures of Savannah and her mom are like very compelling. They're very compelling. You can see the love radiating off of these two. And I can relate to it. Honestly, it's like Savannah used to not, we've talked about it many times. Her dad died when she was 16. My dad died when I was 15.
My dad died when I was
sudden heart attacks.
Yep.
Yeah. Like there's something, I don't know.
Your mom becomes your mom and your dad. Your mom, when your dad dies young, your mom becomes both parents. And my mom wasn't the tough guy when we were kids, but she had to become one because she had 6 teenagers when our dad died.
Well, it's no accident you became an FBI agent. It's definitely no accident you became an FBI agent. It's not, and it's no accident. Savannah and I both went to law school, and then we both became.
Now, what's interesting here is Megyn Kelly didn't give Maureen a chance to give her thoughts on the book part. Maybe that means Maureen doesn't want to speculate on it. Maybe that's what that means. But let's see.
Reporters, and I don't know. I would suggest, for the record, maybe we both had something to prove of our own. There's no question that the loss of a father figure and an actual father at a very young age has a profound impact on a young woman. And Savannah did not want to leave her mom when it was time to go off and get her first reporting job, and the mother insisted that she do it. I understand that too. It was like I had it more when I went to college. I felt so bad because I was the third kid, and I did not want to leave my mom alone at all. You know, I knew she'd be alone, and I did. My mom said, "You're going. Like, get out. This is it. I insist." And I went. And so it's incredibly sad, and it's incredibly awful to think that something as sweet as a segment with her mom could possibly have played a role in the mom's targeting, or like a fun childhood story about like a silly game. But that's
she's coming back around to it, which is good. So the updates are they sent the DNA to the FBI CODIS database, no matches. And that was for the glove and for the DNA found in the house. So that's the FBI database. Part 2 is the genealogy test. So now the other things we're looking for is that backpack that is exclusively sold at Walmart. But does that really mean it's exclusively sold at Walmart? Could it be resold on Amazon or a thrift store? Possibly, right? And the other thing is the balaclava mask. Now, in the beginning of this video, Savannah Guthrie had a book where she was talking about some kidnapping game they would play as a kid, which is just, considering what happened, it's interesting. And Megyn Kelly is about to ask Maureen this here.
Silly game involved the word kidnapping, and even a fake kidnapping within the family where they took her. You just never know what's going to set a lunatic down the lane he or she goes.
Sweet baby Jesus, can we just rid this world of all the lunatics? They are just outnumbering us at this point. It's crazy. But with regard to the kidnapping thing in her book, it sounds like the older cousin Terry was just coming up with some like secret plan to get the kids up early in the morning to get them out of the house to beat the traffic. And she just had a good imagination. How someone else takes that is a totally different matter. My dad, if he were late coming home as a joke, he would call my mom and, she'd be all upset. And he would just say to her, "Hey, Mary, don't pay the ransom. I've escaped." And we would all crack up. And she'd say, "That son of a gun," but.
So basically, Maureen's saying it could be completely innocent and unrelated on Savannah's end. But that being said, someone can look too far into it. Like some lunatics might look too far into anything, is what it sounds like Maureen's saying.
So there are people that can find a little dark humor in things, and my whole family's first responders, so we all have that kind of dark humor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not blaming.
We're Irish, so we have it.
It's so true of the Irish. We can't. We try to hide it, but it just, when it comes out, you just see everyone burst into laughter, and
yes,
you just gotta hit
we joke about everything.
Irish. Maybe that's why I like Maureen. I'm the majority Irish myself.
Inappropriate and appropriate,
especially
and
inappropriate.
It's a great way to go through life. Honestly, it's like that. That's why you don't get too stressed out, and hopefully you live a long life because you're not running around with high cortisol all the time.
Hey,
you laugh it away. It's a very effective tool.
If we got rid of all the bad people, like Maureen's saying, social media would be reduced to about 10% of the people that go on there every day. So we
I
don't
don't
have
know.
social media anymore.
This is also true.
Some potential lunatics
Okay,
would
and-
dive right in.
And now that leads me back to the fourth letter that Harvey Levin got over at TMZ. So as the audience knows, I know Maureen's rolling her eyes and throwing her head back. I know we all feel that way. Like, what the F?
I'm starting to wonder, does Harvey have an alibi for where he was that night? Just kidding.
Many of the Twitter follows, like, they're so fed up with like the way this investigation is going. They've been like, have they checked under Nancy's bed? Have they checked the basement? You know, some basic searching mechanisms that they're pushing. But here's what's happened. Harvey Levin has now gotten 4 letters from someone not claiming to be the kidnapper, but claiming to know who the kidnapper is. And for the low price of 1 Bitcoin, he will tell Harvey who the kidnapper is. That's how number 1 started. Then it grew to, well, now the FBI is offering 100,000. Bitcoin's only worth 65. So I'll take 100,000 for my information now. And I want it to be 50 grand in Bitcoin before I reveal and the other 50 after I reveal. Different iterations of this. Then, and also he was offended that they raised the award. He was like, I feel attacked, something like that.
I thought that was great.
Person sounds like an absolute moron. So Harvey was on TV, you'll be shocked to hear, talking about this development. And here is what he said, SOT 57.
I have something to say to you. And I've already talked to the FBI about this, that if you are not real, you're committing a crime. This is the 4th letter you've sent. And I should tell everybody that in this letter, it says, I know what I saw 5 days ago south of the border, and I was told to shut up, so I know who he is, and that was definitely Nancy with them. This is the 2nd time he has referred to more than one person involved in this. He also says one of the reasons he's worried about coming forward is he has a record. He has a burglary on his record from 10 years ago. If you're worried about getting this money, and you really do have this information.
And again, this guy just sounds like an opportunistic exploiter. That's what this guy sounds like to me. But what do you think, chat? Opportunistic exploiter, or he's legit? So press 1 for just being opportunistic and trying to exploit the situation. Press 2 for, oh, he's legit.
Send it to us. You're sending us these letters. Send it to us. We will forward it to the FBI. So this is a way for you to get that money if this really is legitimate.
Okay. So now in the 3rd letter, by the way, that preceded this, Harvey said the man had written, be prepared to go international. Be prepared to go international. And so now we've got a 4th letter claiming he saw Nancy with, quote, them in Mexico, Jonathan. I mean...
So the question was, Danielle, do you think that guy writing to Harvey Levin is an opportunistic exploiter, or do you think it's legit and he's really seen Nancy? I think opportunistic exploiter, and most people in the chat think so. I only seen one person, I think, that didn't. But what do you think, Danielle?
To be honest, we haven't fully explored the south of the border possibilities. The sheriff kind of ruled them out the other day. I mean, I don't believe the sheriff. I got to be honest. I don't believe a word that comes out of the sheriff's mouth. But the other day he did say, like, no, we don't even think that's a thing. So okay. Based on what? Your Democrat policies? Truly, like, how have you totally ruled out south of the, you don't know who fucking did it. Sorry. I've had it with this guy. Should we be talking? Should we be paying a Bitcoin and a half to see what this guy may know about south of the border?
Well, first of all, let me say that, you know, again, hosting radio, you make live reads so easy because they're terrible. But as you can see, Harvey Levin, who I figured he would be able to read a little bit better than that. That was terrible, first of all. But
it was pretty stilted.
Yeah. So, but listen, this goes back. I found something very striking. I've heard him read that already a couple of times, but for whatever reason, it didn't jump out at me that the individual that is supposedly writing these letters, first of all, Are they coming from the same email? And if they are, then that is very telling. Secondly,
I think he said yes. I think he did say they
so
are.
the individual just said that he has a record for burglary. Now, I find that very odd as well. As I told you last time I was on here, 20% of the people who commit a homicide are the ones who call in and report the homicide. So they think that's going to keep them out of trouble. Or
Yes, that's like the girl with the dragon tattoo. There's a quote. Yes, the person who calls the detective should always remain on the suspect list. I've always liked that quote.
For whatever reason. So it could be the case, and I would hope that they are looking into this, that this individual could be the one who was actually going in there to burglarize the place, didn't even think about TMZ or anything, and then these other potentially fraud ransom letters came in and were read by TMZ, and so this individual reached out because he wants to get some money for something. Perhaps it was a robbery gone bad. But the reality is, again, when we're looking at the totality of all these things, this is how you go down as an investigator. You have to look down these rabbit holes.
International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There is a never.
So that was that one.
He did or didn't take. We don't know at what.
We do have some promising possibilities on the backpack and Walmart. Okay, the New York Post is reporting that detectives have been handed their, quote, most promising lead yet, according to a former top cop who they interviewed, who said that Walmart has now handed over the purchase records for backpacks that match the one used by the perp, the abductor. It's a black Ozark Trail hiker. They're 99% sure that's what it is. And that bag is sold exclusively at Walmart. So that's great. Now, they do point out, look, it doesn't mean couldn't have wound up at a Goodwill or a thrift store or a flea market or been gifted by somebody to somebody else. But let's face it, the overwhelming odds are that this guy bought it. And he bought it at a Walmart. And so they're going back now and trying to figure out, thanks to like the SKU numbers, you know, where you scan your little number when you buy something, who bought these backpacks, when, where, and trying to find videotape that'll match the transaction and any other identifying information. I mean, this seems to me like good old-fashioned police work.
Very good. And one thing I can say about Walmart is they have phenomenal technology and cameras in there. Every register has a camera in it. We know we have them at the entrances, the parking lots. So what will be really interesting is I did read one thing, and it may have been on X or something, that they believe that type of ski mask is also sold at Walmart. So what a golden, a golden egg this would be, Megan. If all of a sudden you see the guy with the old soul patch and the backpack and the ski mask, at that point, you better start stretching and get ready. Because things are going to start moving really quickly. But it's almost like a tale as old as times. How many Dateline episodes or crime shows have we seen where they go back and this is how they're caught? They go back to the Walmart, the Ace Hardware, and you see them buying the type of equipment to dispose of a body or to break in or whatever.
Duct tape, exactly. It's a shovel, it's duct tape, it's a tarp.
It's a murder kit.
I mean, like every other Dateline.
We're still dealing with the
every other
criminal,
Dateline
guys. This is still a criminal. Right? Criminals aren't smart. They do screw up, and I get it. I'm sitting there going, well, this guy's covered his tracks pretty well so far, but they're still criminals, and somewhere he has screwed up in that crime scene.
You know,
well, that's the thing, Jonathan. This guy, he will not. He didn't think he was going to get caught on camera that night at Nancy Guthrie's. He did not think so. You know, he wore his little ski mask to protect his identity. Then he thought he was hiding or covering up that camera, and then eventually.
I mean, I think he was wearing enough so that even if that camera was working temporarily, I mean, we still haven't been able to identify him. Some people think they might have, right? But not as of yet, for sure. So I think he was prepared to be seen for the short time he was.
Eventually took it down. I'm sure he was shocked to learn that there were still images of him. So what are the odds when he bought this backpack? We're told if it's the backpack they think, it's only available at Walmart. What are the odds this guy was there buying it thinking, I've got to hide my identity here. They're going to figure out I had this backpack. Meanwhile, he thought he wouldn't even be on camera. They're going to figure out I have the backpack, though, and I got to hide the trip to Walmart. Maybe I'm wrong, but even the DC pipe bomber accused, who seemed like autistic and yet very smart in some ways, had bought like pieces of that bomb in this Radio Shack and that store and this store and the other store and waited years between the purchases to make it look less suspicious, but they pieced it all together. What are the odds that this guy, Mr. I'm going to shove some vegetation on it, was so meticulous in the lead up that every single purchase was masked in a way that he's not identifiable?
Well, they're thinking, it's hard to understand these criminals and the way that they think. I mean, one thing is they're bold enough and comfortable enough with walking onto somebody's porch at 2 a.m. And then going in, breaking in, and staying in there for what we know at least 41 minutes. That's the comfort zone that they work in, which is, it can be a psychopathic type of where they don't have a conscience like we would typically have, and they don't feel the emotions like we feel, so they can go in and do these things, but it doesn't mean that they're good at what they do. And so what we typically see, and again, I've been in the FBI and done all the other things, but watching 48 Hours, binge watching that for years and years, what you're going to see are statistics and behaviors and things that come out with these people, and they do things because they don't have the conscience and they're not scared, but they make these gigantic mistakes or micro mistakes that really giant investigators are able to go out and find. So I think that diligent investigation and agencies that do their work in a fast is smooth is slow, and when they do that and they really take in all things into account, you will see these mistakes that these criminals make, and it's profound. We mistake, though. We say all the time that this was a what's the word that they use? That this was an advanced, or that this person had some type of expertise in this. I mean, as we see with that guy, his expertise was walking up, covering himself completely up, and walking into a home. But I'm sure he didn't think that when he dropped that glove a mile or more away from the home, that was going to be found by investigators. I'm positive that he didn't think that.
Well, if that's his.
Yeah.
If that's his, we don't
and
know.
One caveat to that bag, I will say, and to Walmart, is that they do live very close to the border, and there are Walmarts in Mexico. So he could have gotten that bag in Mexico, and if that's the case.
I mean, let's think also, if you're a criminal, you would probably want to buy everything you can in as many different locations as you can, as far away as you possibly can, because then it would be less detectable, right? I mean, that's what a smart criminal would do. And it's also possible this person at the front door could just be like a setup person, because I think it's also very likely there's more than one person. What makes me think that is the back door being wide open.
Then it throws a whole nother problem into the case.
And we're also told that the Tucson Walmart does not have that ski mask. They don't care. They don't keep them in stock. And so that would have to be an online purchase if he got that at Walmart. I mean, that one could have come from Amazon, et cetera. So that one may be a little tougher to track. Maureen, can I ask you, yesterday, I did the show without you guys, and the breaking news yesterday morning was that a local reporter in Tucson was claiming, based on an inside source, she didn't describe it as law enforcement, et cetera, that this whole case has moved closer to believing that A, Nancy may be alive, and B, that this was a burglary gone bad. Now, no sooner did she take to the airwaves and report that than both of the Fox News reporters on this, citing their federal sources, said getting serious pushback on that, on both pieces of it. They're not saying Nancy's dead. They're just saying, don't sign me up for, we believe she's, we strongly believe she's still alive. And the burglary thing, but she's standing by her sources, and she's had good reporting thus far. Do you believe that this was plausibly a burglary gone bad?
I say no. But Maureen, she's the best former FBI agent I know. Beautiful and smart, they say.
No. No, I don't. And I don't know of many burglars that go into a house, don't take anything of value other than a female victim who's practically immobile. So no, I don't think that's. I wonder who her source is and what they heard that they misunderstood, because it just doesn't seem to make any sense to me at all.
I wouldn't rule it out, though. I wouldn't rule it out, and I hope that they don't.
Why not? Because the reason I rule it out is because he didn't take anything other than Nancy
that we know of.
If you're going to steal, and well, yes, but I mean, I feel like the sheriff would have told us if we have reason to believe there was some burglary. There was a burglary aspect of it. I feel like he would have. Maybe I'm wrong, but he you know, like you break in there, you're going to steal something. Maybe you bump into the homeowner. Maybe she got up for a cup of tea in the middle of the night because she couldn't sleep, and you decide you're going to take her because she saw your face or what have you. Aren't you at least going to take your loot too? You're going to take something besides the old lady and the hassle.
It could be. Well, yeah, it could be. But see, we first of all, we don't know what he did or didn't take. We don't know at what point, if he was in there burglarizing the home when she woke up. She could have woken up immediately.
Think about that, though. A burglary gone wrong. How wrong would it have to go to wind up like this, where you capture a woman and it wasn't your intention to do so? Very likely the woman is no longer with us. So now, before you were just a burglar, which, you know, you get caught doing that. If you get caught doing that armed, it's even more time than if you're not armed, right? But that's not a life sentence. But now, I mean, anyone who gets caught now, they're going to be locked away a long time. And you heard Trump say death penalty. I mean, not that that would be put out there, but still, that's what he's saying.
And he injured her or killed her immediately. And then he spent 40-something minutes trying to figure out how to get her out of there. Also, I've heard people talking about, well, his backpack is full. Well, you know, every time I order something online, like a drone or something, I get a backpack with it, and it's cheap. And that guy could have had 20 bags stuck inside that backpack that he has. So we don't know what his intent was. So that's why I just say I don't rule these things out. Just like I wouldn't rule out the family being a suspect or actually having paid somebody to carry out this crime. As an investigator, I take each possible lead or each possible theory, and I put them on a dry erase board, and then as the evidence comes in, then I will chart that evidence underneath that one particular avenue of approach that I'm looking at. And so as crazy as it may sound, there's always a plausibility. And I think when you look at the fact that we don't actually know when and what happened inside that house, then you can't say that his intent was not to show up there and rob the place.
I mean, I'm still saying, though, it would have to go way wrong for it to wind up like that. Like, okay, you see her, and then you panic somehow. You panic and say, okay, you're coming with me. Like, really? Like, if you think of a burglary gone wrong, generally speaking, I don't think you're going to do that. Now, it's not impossible, but generally speaking, I don't think so.
I want to talk about a couple of other possibilities here, because, you know, we've been talking about the other possibility. There's a few, you know, yes, I suppose burglary gone bad is one of them. I don't think it's most plausible, but okay, it's one of them. One of the lanes is family member who wanted to get rid of Nancy for some reason. One of the lanes is stalker of Savannah Guthrie, who wanted to get closer to her, wanted to hurt her, something like that, you know, doing something to the mother. They couldn't get close enough to Savannah. And then there's also the possibility of just random ne'er-do-well. Worker. Or somebody who didn't like Nancy. Yeah, a worker who Nancy didn't give him a good enough tip. Nancy said the wrong thing. They saw an opportunity. And there is still the possibility of legit kidnapper who decided to like steal this old lady because she had a famous daughter and he thought he could extract a bunch of money from her. So there's a couple of those lanes that I wanted to explore with you guys today, including stalker, Savannah stalker. It just so happens that just this week, a BBC presenter, that's what they call them over there, news anchor who is Scottish. She works for Scotland's BBC, or is it GB? In any event, she's a UK broadcaster for the BBC, and she's Scottish. Her name is Anne McAlpine, and she just came out this week and gave an interview about having been stalked by an erotomaniac. a guy who very wrongly believed that they were in a relationship, even though they had never, ever met. And here is what she said in SOT 61.
It was letters that started coming to my work, and they were declarations of love, poems, gifts, CDs, cards, those sort of things.
So more than fan letters.
Yeah, and they were quite frequent in nature as well. Sometimes I would receive up to 3 or 4 in 1 week over the course of about 8 to 12 months. Didn't think a huge amount of them at the time. I didn't find them particularly threatening. Unpleasant and uncomfortable, certainly, yes, and a bit of a nuisance. But a lot of the time, these letters would end up in the bin, depending on where I was when I read them. So they were in block capitals, all signed off by the same name. So there was a reference point, there was a name, and they were also dated. But I got engaged at the end of 2021, and the tone in the letters sort of shifted.
Why? Because the engagement was public?
Yes, and I think this person seemed to think that we were in some sort of relationship. They would comment on the clothes that I wore on TV, the way that I moved, the way I held my pen. They thought I was giving subliminal messages through the television.
Chad, that is so chilling because as I told...
Yeah, and people can take anything the wrong way, right? So I think she had an Irish accent, I guess is what that would be.
Told you guys, that's exactly what happened to me with my stalker, who was an erotomaniac back when I first started at Fox News. He thought he was getting messages from me through my hand gestures on television. He thought that we had some whole...
And that's the other thing. I mean, it's very likely law enforcement isn't telling us everything. And let's just throw out some numbers. Maybe we only know 20% of what's going on. And there's 80% they're withholding from us. But even with that 80% they're withholding, they still haven't caught someone. So, yes, I think it's very likely we don't know everything, but even so, it doesn't mean they found her. I mean, at the end of the day, that's victory, right? Victory is finding Nancy alive. Finding her, even if not alive, is at least a step in the right direction, unfortunately.
Coded language that we spoke to one another, all of which was made up by this unwell person. And there you see it happening to this gal, too. Is it possible that it was happening to Savannah Guthrie, too, whether she knew it or not? And this person saw a soft target featured in that Today Show segment she did about her mom, where she went to Tucson and showed off Tucson, and they sat in a Tucson bar and had margaritas 3 months before this happened.
Well, I'm sure that the FBI is diving into Savannah's unread, or, you know, how your texts or the Instagram.
Yeah, right. That is more Scottish. It reminds me of William Wallace. I should have known that.
Instagram messages go to a separate folder if you're not friends with people. I'm sure they're diving into that. But Megan, you bring up a great point. We have seen an increase, and there's a term out there called extreme misogyny. And that's these guys, predominantly men, that just have this hatred. They get a friend request, or they see someone on TV, and they truly believe that, you know, this is a mental illness, and that they are being invited into some type of relationship, or that this person is communicating with them. And when they do not get what they are looking for, that extreme misogyny, they turn to violence. It is hard, though, to wrap my head that this person would turn and kidnap an 84-year-old woman to take out your anger. But I guess it is plausible. It is possible. If you want to affect the hearts of a young woman, go take her mother.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of the reasons why this story is so compelling and has so many eyeballs, which is like,
I don't believe that's the motive here. I'd be shocked if that's what the motive was. I think it's either money or punishment for something else. I don't think the extreme misogyny part would be it.
Who takes somebody's mom? You know, it's just like, it's just, has it ever happened before? Somebody's mom got stolen? That's like one of the things. It's so bizarre that we're all searching for some explanation. Let me play one more soundbite on it. Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
No, just one more thing, because I think you've done a really good job. There's so many keyboard investigators out here that are saying, hey, I'm getting tired of this case, yada, yada, yada. We have a family whose mother is missing. Anybody out there that had a mother or a loved one that would go missing would be begging for investigators and just like you said, in the media, to be covering this 24/7 until you brought them home. Yes, this is a little bit more high profile because of who Savannah is. It doesn't matter if it was Tom, Dick, or Harry down the street. Someone's mother's missing, and law enforcement's out there doing the best they can.
One other soundbite from anchor Ann McAlpine, SOT 62.
So there was a situation where I was getting dropped off by a friend and
Scottish, not Irish.
Colleague after a late shift. It was dark, and this
Scottish, like our good buddy Sean Connery and Yesh.
man was standing in the middle of the road holding a carrier bag.
Outside your home?
Outside my
we should
home.
say, which
yeah.
is-
He approached the car. I was still in the car talking to my friend. He held eye contact, was walking towards me quite slowly, and something just felt really off. He didn't look friendly. He didn't look like he was looking for directions. He didn't look like he was going to speak even. He came right up to the passenger side of the car, just looked in. I said to my friend, listen, I think you should drive off. We locked the doors and drove off. And then I called my husband to come to the front door to meet me. So that was the first incident outside the house. Yeah. And it sort of intensified after that, a few months after that. And my neighbours were involved as well, because he was trying to gain access to the house. He was buzzing the flat in the middle of the night. He would stand in the middle of the road, just look up at the window.
What, in the middle of the night?
Yeah. The first time was in the middle of the night, and then he was sort of sitting on my steps waiting for me.
All right, Maureen, my point is, if you were like this about Savannah Guthrie, you couldn't get anywhere near her. She is too well protected. That's all I'll say. But trust me, she is. But you could get near her exposed 84-year-old mom.
Right. And she's got a good security team, Savannah does. And they were in contact with the police shortly after, this event began to unfold. And they were working on anybody that was, looking at her from afar or from close up. But, she just had that surgery a couple of weeks ago, and she was in a hospital.
On her vocal cords.
Yeah. And, maybe her mom was the emergency contact. Maybe that is something that sparked something like this in someone. But, having
or the Today Show feature.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing that anyone with two eyeballs can say for sure, and that is Savannah Guthrie loves her mom unbelievably, just like a lot of us do or have. You could just see it. It was so apparent, and it was so beautiful to see.
Yeah.
So if you did want to exercise some sort of control over her, that would be a way to do it. But something's got to be done to stop this nonsense.
International disputes, inflation.
So the other thing would be, on X, people were saying that, oh, Savannah knows more than she's leading on. I don't think so. Some people really trying to be hard on her, but I don't think so.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I'm actually outside the Pima County Sheriff's Office right now. Just a little while ago, I wrapped up an interview with the sheriff. Got a lot of new information, some stuff about the cameras at Nancy's house. I knew that there were other Google Nest cameras, and I was wondering if they had the video yet from those, just like they did from the front, if the FBI was able to get it. He says no, that they're waiting on Google. He's going to explain that. Also, new information about the DNA testing. There was no match with CODIS. It's interesting that the FBI is telling us that, by the way. What is that?
And by the way, this is Brian Entin's newest video. To me, he's the best in the space. I trust what he says more than anything. And the person I trust in terms of former FBI the most is Maureen O'Connell.
Actually mean? Could there be something going on behind the scenes? I've got my retired FBI friend who's going to kind of explain all of that. And then there was some action at Nancy Guthrie's house today that I have video of. Some of it a little perplexing. I'll get into all of it in this episode of Brian Entin Investigates. Hey guys, so I'm outside the Pima County Sheriff's Office. And again, I'm going to get to that interview with the sheriff in a second, but I wanted to give you all the latest updates from today. Some are pretty significant. First of all, when it comes to DNA, We learned that they put the DNA from the glove that was located about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house. They put the DNA into the FBI CODIS database, which is the database where all of the criminals, their DNA is entered into it. It's a massive federal database. So the DNA was finally entered in the CODIS database, and it came back without a match, which is obviously not good news. It's not really what anyone was hoping to hear. And I've also learned that other DNA from this case, from the Nancy Guthrie investigation that was entered into the CODIS database, has come back negative for a match. So
double DNA negative there. So the next step is going to be the genealogy test. And they're also going to look for this backpack at Walmart. My hopes aren't really too high for that, though. I think I'd have more hopes on the genealogy thing. But I mean, outside of this, we're gonna hear what he says about this new footage. But outside of that, I don't know, man. To me, it's not looking good.
At this point, no matches in CODIS, although I'm told there's still more DNA that they plan to enter into the database. We've also confirmed that they have started the IgG DNA process, which is the investigative genetic genealogy. And if that sounds familiar, that's because that is one of the big things that cracked the Brian Kohberger case in Idaho, the IgG. And that is essentially when they take the DNA that they have and they put it into these genetic genealogy databases, which is, and if you look back, I've done a couple of episodes on this. This is like when you do those tests at home to get your genealogy and find out who your relatives are and what your background is. They have access to some of those databases, and then they can try to figure out if they can find a match that way. It could be someone's second or third cousin or an aunt or uncle, and then they can try to back into who the suspect.
So, Mike, that's a good question. Do we think they would even tell us if there was a match? And I would say yes, only to get tips that where is this person. Now, the con of doing it would be, well, that person that was matched would run away. Now, the pro would be, well, where are they going to run away to? You would think they would notify the Canadian and Mexican borders, right? Or any airport. That's what they do, right? If there's someone on the run, they notify every airport and every border crossing. Keep your eyes open for this person. They're wanted.
Is that way. So we suspected they were going to use that technology, and now we've confirmed that they are officially trying the IgG method. Although that takes more time. That could take weeks, that could take months. It's not like just traditional DNA comparisons. So we may not have an update on that front anytime soon. I was outside Nancy Guthrie's house for most of the day. There were a couple of interesting things that happened. First of all, there was a pickup truck and a...
So no touch. You should go make your own channel and start talking about all the other missing kids. If not, save it.
Subaru that showed up, and the sheriff actually let them through onto the driveway. I saw at least one man. There were two men, but I saw one man get out. He had almost like a briefcase, went around the back of the house. They went inside the house, which is the first time I've seen anyone non-law enforcement go in the house that I can remember. I don't know who they were. Some people were speculating that maybe it was a locksmith. I don't know if it was someone that the family sent over to get something from inside, but they were inside for, several minutes. And again, law enforcement let them in, and then they left. So that don't really have much of an explanation for that, but it was kind of interesting. There was also some detectives at Nancy Guthrie's neighbor's house, and they were inspecting what appeared to be like a ring camera there with some floodlights. And the sheriff's office later confirmed that there were detectives in the area, but didn't say exactly what they were doing. I want to play for you my interview with Chris Nanos, the Pima County Sheriff. I was able to meet up with him today in his office. He did a lot of media interviews. We were only given 10 minutes. So, I was only able to ask so many questions. So if you're wondering why I didn't get to more, they basically cut me off at the end. It started off with him telling me, it's kind of awkward for a second. He said, you have questions for me, and this is before the camera started rolling. You have questions for me and I have questions for you. And he kind of brought up some of my coverage and some of the people who I've interviewed who have had not such great things to say about him. And he was going to address some of those things at the end of the interview, but then we ran out of time because the person who was in charge, like the media sort of handler was said, oh no, 10 minutes is up, you're done. So this is really all the time that I had. But I think what was most interesting is what he said. To me, what was most interesting is what he said about the Google Nest cameras, and they're still trying to get more video. So this is my interview with the sheriff. Thank you for doing this, Sheriff. Appreciate it very much. I know that you and the FBI were able to get those surveillance photos off the camera in the front of the house.
Yeah.
Any progress on the other cameras? Can you do the same thing?
Boy, I'm hopeful. Here's what happened there. So we, of course, that camera we don't have, right? It was taken, removed from the scene, but we knew it existed, and we asked, I think it's Google Nest, Google, hey, what can you do with this? And we gave them the other cameras and asked the same. And they said, well, there's not a subscription here.
So No Touch is going to call me an abuser when he says, what are you doing still talking about Nancy? She's a bitch. Talk about some Darvo there. Everyone should ridicule him before I ban him.
Hard because it overwrites itself, right? Every, I don't know how many hours, maybe it's every 36 or 72, whatever it is. But you know what, Sheriff, we'll try. Thank you. Away they went. They came back with this. And I'm going to try to explain this as a simple man that I am would. They explained it, it's like peeling paint. You have images over images over images, and you want to get to that 8th layer or the 6th layer, and you got to peel back very easily because you might destroy the layer you wanted. So they were able to do that. I said, oh, this is really, that was that piece of evidence. Oh, they kept it 10 days. No, we all sat here with, right in our command post with the FBI and went, this is really great stuff. We need this out there. So I don't know that it was here more than 2 hours. And it's only because we had to do some cutting of the way they sent it to us and prepare it to get out to the media, and had to check with Washington, all those things that the FBI had to do as well. And we got it out probably less than 2 hours. And it generated in that first hour for us, just alone here at the department, almost 5,000 tips. So it's a great piece of evidence. So there's other cameras. Your question.
On a side note, it is pretty impressive Brian Entin was able to get him to sit down for an interview. He's very selective, the sheriff here, on who he interviews. Also, considering who Brian interviewed those other two guys, Under Sheriff Rick Castiger and the other guy whose name I forget. But maybe that's the very reason why he's on here. Maybe he's going to address some of those things those other guys said.
Will we get more? We've asked the Google, hey guys, can you do this? And they said the very same thing. Sheriff, we don't think we can get anything, but we'll try. And that's all we're hopeful.
And so as of now, it's still just the video from the front?
Yes.
Okay. Savannah Guthrie, Nancy's daughter, obviously very famous, loved around the country. Is this really random, or do you think someone may have had, like, you know, a grievance against Savannah? Have you been able to sort that out at all?
You know, well, yeah. Anything's possible, right? I mean, there was talk, well, this was a burglary gone bad. This was that. Those things have never come out of this office because we recognize that anything is possible, and we'll allow that evidence to show us what it is. The time to ask that question, motive, is when we actually know who's done this. And so, yeah, I get the speculation, but yeah, for me, I just looked at it and said from day one that Nancy was removed from her home against her will. We need to find her.
I know your deputies, detectives are working around the clock.
Not the best insight there by the sheriff. It's like, oh yeah, of course, Sheriff. Yes. She was removed from the home against her will. Yes.
I mean, we see them, you know. How long can this go on for in terms of the investigation at this level?
Because of the media, really, and that's a good thing, right? Because of the media, we've generated so many leads. I know last Wednesday we had 18,000 leads. The FBI had 14. So you're talking over 30,000. We're probably closer to 40 or 50,000. As long as those leads keep coming, we'll keep at it.
I know you've said you can't, for the investigative reasons, talk about what you found in the house. But is there a lot in the house that you're not able to say? I mean, is there a lot of evidence we don't know about in terms of this being a crime?
No, again, you're asking me something that I can't talk about. I will tell you this. We removed some biological evidence, prints, DNA, whatever. All of that was removed and sent to the lab. We removed physical evidence, computers, phones, everything. Anything.
Oh, a super chat. This is sweet Caroline. Caroline, thank you so much for the super chat. There was another sweet Caroline in the chat I mistakenly confused you for before. So I apologize for that. But thank you very much for the support. You're always the best.
Thing we could. And that's submitted to another lab. That was given to the FBI. And why do we give it to the FBI? Because we know that they're very good at some of that stuff. And so we share with them that. Why did we give ours to our lab? Because it's what we've done for years, and our lab's always done well. In fact, we've used the FBI before. They're very good at solving things and doing things. But the FBI, not unlike our Department of...
So my personal opinion is, I don't think the sheriff is going to say much in this interview, but I do think what he's doing is damage control, image management. Why would he be doing that? Because of those other two guys. Those other two guys gave him the million-man smear campaign. So he's like, oh no, I got to get up here and repair my image. To the very person that was, they were smearing my image to Brian Entin, so I have to set the record straight to Brian Entin.
Public safety in Phoenix, they have a lab. They could have been used, but we look at it as this. If I use, for example, a state lab, DPS, or the federal lab, Quantico, you have to understand they have others using those labs too. And so it really puts a lot of strain on them to prioritize those cases and do what they can with them, where if I have my own lab or a contract lab, it allows me easier access to those cases that I think are important to us. And I'm not talking this case, I'm just talking cases in general. We could build a lab, but that's pretty expensive too.
But remember this though, too, the timeline's all out of whack. Remember they were saying before, oh, you can send the stuff to Florida, that's the private lab they send things to. But then needing it to send it to CODIS is an extra step that's going to take longer. Well, they got that done. They did it. And those CODIS results are what came back negative today. So despite all that, they were still able to do it. So it makes me wonder about the timeline. The timeline seems all jarbled now, but that part didn't seem like a mistake now. Like they got it done, and there was no match. The end.
We just found that this lab we use is very good. Were they in Florida at the time? I have no idea. But I know that in today's world of technology, reports are generated and sent out in the flash of an eye. What we need to know is when we send something to a lab, can we get it back to us quickly? Can we have a rush order, if you will? Well, sometimes I want this now, but the FBI may say, well, we understand that, but New York has a crime, LA has a crime, so it's not against the labs. And so when this piece of evidence, we did what we normally do, we send it to the lab, and we did that scene. Then we went and did another scene when we did a search warrant out in Rio Rico. So all of that was gone. Now we find a glove. The FBI says, oh, we can send it to Quantico. And I said, well, you know what? Let's keep it all in one place. Let's just send it all to our lab. No, it's not like, no, FBI's got a bad lab, or no, the sheriff's department uses DNL, they're a bad lab. No.
I mean, remember, Jennifer Coffendorfer was completely fine with that, sending it to the Florida lab, and so was Maureen. So I don't know. I don't know what the issue got turned into there. The real issue that he did was opening the crime scene too soon. Now, the only thing I'll say in his defense was apparently his brother just died. Maybe that could contribute to some of his decision-making, perhaps.
It is about keeping your evidence together in one spot. And when that report comes out, it goes to both agencies. It just made sense. In fact, all of this conversation I had with you, when they said, oh, the sheriff blocked evidence, This conversation I had with the FBI lasted probably a minute and a half, and they said, make censure, and it was done. There's no blocking evidence or just crazy.
Let me ask you. Okay, we've seen the photos from the surveillance camera in the front of the man. Do you think there could be a second suspect?
You saw what I saw. We know he is a bad dude. He's who we want. Is there somebody else working with him? I don't know that. We'll know it when we find him.
The TMZ letters. I've lost count of how many they've received. TMZ, they've been receiving these letters claiming that it's from someone involved.
So yeah, the ransoms type things or those kinds of letters.
And I know FBI is investigating that part, right?
Correct.
But do you think they're legit? Because it seems like every day they're on TV with a new letter.
Again, you want to go to your experts, right? It would be irresponsible for me to give my opinion on something that we've given to the FBI to look into. That's their bailiwick. We'll let them handle that.
And the search warrants, we saw the one in Rio Rico, and then we saw the one close to, I think, 2 miles from Nancy's house on Friday night. Does that mean that you all believe the suspect could be close? Because it seems like the action we're seeing so far is right in the Tucson area.
So how those develop is this, and you may see it today. It may not be anything today. You may see 5 of them today. But what happens is this. We have 400 investigators out there from all agencies. Not just in this valley, the 10 different law enforcement agencies, but some from Phoenix and FBI from across the country. And they're out there shaking down leads, 40-some thousand leads. Every morning they get up and they're working 24/7. So they start with a little lead and they're told, go check on this. And that lead develops. And as they move through it, it grows and grows like a snowball, just getting bigger and bigger to a point where they go, you know what? I think we've developed a person of interest. I think we've got something here that maybe we need to go back and brief on.
Seems like the sheriff here is a little theatrical, right? I think he kind of likes the limelight. I get the sense he likes this attention. It's almost like a theatrical drama to him, a real life drama, which unfortunately has real life consequences, right?
So they come back in and they talk to the command post who's there. U.S. attorney, county attorneys, different law people behind different areas of law who sit back and discuss it and say, you know what, maybe there's enough here for a search warrant. Maybe we got to get petition for physical characteristics. Maybe that characteristic is a photo. Maybe it's buckle cells. Maybe it's fingerprint, whatever it is. And we present it to a judge. And a judge says, yeah, I think here's enough. He signs it. That's how that snowballs. And everybody's energetic and they're suing through. I wish you could.
And this is stuff we knew everything he said in this. Like everything he said, we know.
Could see the face of the young men and women out there who are working these and all the energy, because it's what happens in investigations, particularly bigger investigations, where they're so excited, probably like you are. We've got a good lead, we're going to, and then it falls through. It's not the person. Nancy's not at that house. But that's part of the ebbs and flows of an investigation. You're going to have that highs and lows. So for me, that's why it's important that I dispel some of the things that are out there so my team knows that, no. They're a solid team. This is a team who saw.
Does anyone even remember what the question was? Because this, I don't know, this is even answering the question. But it kind of reminds me of word salad a little bit. Word salad is when they say a whole lot of words, but say absolutely nothing.
Solves crime every day. They are my experts. I would be silly to not listen to them. When they tell me we spent 20 some hours at this scene, we processed this scene, I'm taking their word that they're good. I don't need to hear from some pundit out there who's never done a crime scene. I don't need to hear from somebody who's never done a criminal investigation. I've got experts. That's who I choose to listen to. Just like the noise in the background, the critics who want to run for office, go do that stuff. I just want to find Nancy. I want my.
So you know who he was referring to? The second guy Brian Entin interviewed, because that guy probably wants to run for office. Same with that other sheriff, that other guy, Jay, whatever his name was interviewing. That guy's running for office, and he's kind of calling them out here too. It would be very interesting if Brian asked him about Well, what are your thoughts about former Undersheriff Rick Castiger, and that other dude I interviewed? What are your thoughts on them, Sheriff Nanos?
Team focused every morning. When they hit that low, that they know that they have someone who believes in them and their work. They're going to do it. I have 100% faith they will solve this case. If you're the guy, if you're that monster, you should be worried. You should let her go. Just let her go.
Are you getting closer?
You know what he reminds me of, too? If you've ever seen The Godfather, and I thought about this because Robert Duvall passed away yesterday, but in Godfather Part 2, the senator that Michael negotiates with, that guy was a real-life oil tycoon, by the way, so he was hardly even acting in that movie. But this guy kind of reminds me of him a little bit, for those Godfather Part 2 fans out there.
I think we are. I think we are. But I have to have that belief, right? I have to have that faith. Every day, we'll keep at it. We ain't quitting.
Appreciate the sheriff for making the time to talk with me. Again, I know he's done a lot of media interviews, and I was glad that I was able to get one of them today, and that was on News Nation, of course. And hopefully I'll get more opportunities to talk to him in the future, because like I told him, there were some things that he didn't like about some of my reporting, and, I always want to get both sides, so I'm happy to have him respond to what some people are saying about, being critical of his the way he's been handling the case. And, I always like to get both sides. So hopefully I'll get more opportunities to interview him. I want to go back to what I was telling you guys.
Yes, George, I 100% agree. George said that the sheriff was using Brian. Yes, he was. I think he wanted to get his platform out there. He wanted to get his little stump speech out there and manage the image. That's what it sounds like to me.
About the DNA and the fact that the FBI says that there were no links in CODIS. What I found particularly interesting about that is that the FBI told us that. I mean, why would they give us a small update like that? Why would they need to tell the public and the media that there were no specific links in CODIS? I went to my friend, retired FBI agent Steve Moore, to talk to him about that and some of the other updates that came today in the case. I'm joined now by Steve Moore, retired FBI agent. It's nice to see you, Steve. It's always good to chat with you. First of all, I wanted to ask you, the sheriff is now saying that they put the DNA from the gloves that were found about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's house into the CODIS system finally, and that there was no match, and that all of the DNA they put in so far, apparently there have been no matches. What do you make of that? Does that surprise you? I mean, because it seems like bad news.
Well, this guy's another former FBI agent. His name escapes me, but he was introduced either yesterday or the day before. Oh, by the way, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
It doesn't surprise me. It disappoints me a little bit, but CODIS, is kind of a new thing, relatively. I mean, it's not like fingerprints that have been around for, over 100 years. So what the problem is that every state, like when you get arrested, when a person gets arrested, you've seen it. It's standard. They fingerprint, they send it off. Everybody's got fingerprints in there. You get it for passports. Everybody's got fingerprints on file. Hardly anybody's got DNA on file. And right now, every arrestee in every 50 state, or every one of the 50 states, do not immediately get put in CODIS. And so, there are crimes in all of the 50 states for which you will get your DNA popped in the CODIS database, but only on conviction for some of them. Although Arizona, as soon as you're arrested for a felony, it's my understanding that they will get a DNA swab with your fingerprinting and send it to CODIS.
So these would just be people who have been arrested who are in this database?
Predominantly. I mean, DNA is not something that they use for any other purpose. Like fingerprints, they use to identify you for passports or things like that, or even sometimes just a document and getting it certified. So DNA is only a criminal database at this point.
So you remember, Steve, that yesterday the sheriff put out this statement, vehemently denying that the Guthries had anything to do with, they were cleared. He used the word cleared, the siblings and their spouses. So they put out another statement today where they talked about this CODIS development, but then they also included a section about the Guthrie family. And they said, in criminal investigations, evidence is examined to either build a case or clear individuals. At this point in the investigation, the Guthrie family, including siblings and spouses, has not been identified as suspects. What I thought was interesting is they're saying at this point in the investigation, where yesterday they were just more vague. What do you make in general of the sheriff, clearly saying that they've been cleared? Is that unusual?
Yeah, it's very unusual.
I would agree with that, because until you have suspects, how are you going to go ahead and clear anybody? I mean, and what's the point of clearing people anyway? Is it a chess move by the sheriff? He wants people to relax because he thinks, well, if I let people think they're clear, maybe they'll make a mistake. That's a very charitable interpretation, by the way. But what other motives could there be? Does he really think it? What do you think? So do you think the sheriff thinks they really are clear? Press 1 for that. Plus 2 if you think it's a chess move of some kind.
And probably had to do a lot with social media, where people are actually going out there and naming names and doing stuff like that. What's interesting to me is he said they were cleared, and then they had to walk that back a little bit and say they're not suspects at this time. When you say somebody is cleared, first of all, you have to know a lot about the crime. It's kind of like, say if you had a crime and you didn't know the actual time of the crime, then anybody's alibi is useless to you. So you can't say, they're cleared by their alibi. In the same way with this case, even though we know time, we don't know a lot more case, at least the public doesn't. So I couldn't understand how they had enough information to clear them. Now, if you tell me that right now they're not suspects, that I can understand. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But that doesn't mean technically that they couldn't be down the road. I think what the sheriff is saying is that he doesn't believe they had anything to do with this. And that's as close as he can come to clearing them. But
why do you even need to say that though, right? So maybe you think that, but why do you need to say it? Just why are you giving something to the media, right? The only reason I can truly think of is to try to make Ashley Banfield look ridiculous. And because she's the one that said Tommaso is a suspect, right? So would I put it past him if he's as petty and as vindictive as former Under Sheriff Rick Castiger says? Would you put it past him to do that just to make Ashley Banfield look silly? Not at all. He certainly knows who Ashley Banfield is. She interviewed him.
Functionally.
And I want to go back. There's something else I thought of with CODIS that I wanted to ask you about that I was thinking of you earlier. Is it unusual that the FBI is giving these updates saying, oh, we tested it and it's not in CODIS? Like would they normally be giving us such a specific update? And then the thing it made me think of is, could it mean that they are closing in on someone and they don't want that person to realize that?
Yeah, that's a very, very good possibility. And yes, it is highly unusual. Those are the kind of, that's the kind of information that you, instead of sending to the public, you post up to your supervisor and say, giving him updates on the case daily. For the FBI to be doing this is extraordinary, in my opinion. And two potential reasons for this is, one, as we've discussed before, the sheriff has a bigger dog in this fight than the FBI does. This is his community. He has to live here. He has to get reelected here. And so he may have negotiated some kind of agreement where the FBI or he could provide more information. But on the other hand, society has changed since I joined the FBI and since I retired. Things are things are rapidly moving into the point where everybody has, as I said on one of the other broadcasts, their own home version of the game, and they are all playing and they are all talking to each other about it. And the world now, in absence of information, will create reality. And so I think what the FBI is trying to do is keep the dust down a little bit on that. And I think what you're seeing here, and go back in 10 years, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a change, a sea change in law enforcement, where you can't just ignore the public and do your job anymore because they're not patient enough to wait for it.
We confirmed yesterday, Steve, that the FBI was going to gun stores in Tucson with a list of 40 names and also 40 photos, and asking employees to run the name, see if they had done any business there and if they recognized.
And to me, that seemed like they were throwing shit up against the wall. But maybe they were using that sketch. Remember that person made a sketch of the person that was on the Nest Cam? Maybe they used that sketch to come up with 40 people. I don't know. But what do you think? And we're going to hear what he says about it.
It's the people. And the first thing I thought of was like, wow, 40 names. Does that mean that those are 40 people who they think could be involved?
Yeah. Well, it could be that 2 or 3 of them are stiffed in there and they know it's not those persons. You don't want to give somebody a set of photos and they can't help but pick somebody who is guilty of something. So occasionally you will put somebody in there in a photos that is not involved, but usually that's for photo IDs. It could be that there are 40, and it goes back to what the FBI has not been sitting around the phone saying, I can't wait for that tip to come in, pick up the phone every time it rings. No, the FBI is investigating this case with what they've got. And while the number 40 is a big number and kind of surprises me, I wouldn't have blinked at 10 to 20. So this tells me that there's a lot of work going on, and that there are 40 people right now, potentially, who they have not been able to clear, that they have not been able to determine are not involved, and have something about them or their actions that gives the FBI pause.
Anything I'm missing, Allison, that's new over the last day?
Yes, we haven't had them clear any of the suspects, any of the people that were detained. We just had them released. We also have them looking for a gun. So that's another lead. It looks like there's a lot more going on. I think you should say something about that, because it's sounding like there isn't, but there is a lot more going on than I think that we even know. I mean, what you reported yesterday was totally new, but clear.
Who's talking now? Cece?
Clearly that gun, they looked at the gun. They're probably looking for the holster too. Let Steve address like what leads we're looking at, so we have just sort of a list.
Yeah, I mean, what other leads do you think that they're looking at right now? I mean, we obviously know that they were going to the gun stores. I mean, do you think the backpack they're still trying to track down? Would it be the holster? Like, what else comes to mind for you?
Yeah, the holster, all the clothes he was wearing, and everything I've seen so far, every piece of clothing that's been identified has been something that's sold at Walmart. So I think right now, they're going to the gun stores with the information that they have on the gun that they believe he was carrying. And at the same time, I'd be surprised if there wasn't 10 agents in Bentonville, Arkansas, with their own little office going through all the digital sales records of Walmart to find one time.
So that was Brian's assistant named Allison.
Time where 3 or 4 of these, the backpack, the holster, the coat, were purchased all at once. And once they find that, it's going to move fast.
And the sheriff said today clearly that the federal search warrant from Friday night, those people were detained. There were no arrests. They've all been released. But he said the investigation is ongoing. What do you think is happening behind the scenes still in relation to that?
They haven't told us why they hit that place, but the fact that they hit it with an evidence response team means to me that it was that they believed that location was involved in the crime. Whether or not it is or is not, they have not discussed, but they are not saying that it's not, which is significant. When you go to somebody's house, and people know the address, and people online are making posting people's names and stuff like that, it would behoove the FBI to say this was not involved in the crime. We have determined that. They haven't said that, which leads me to believe that there was something that they were searching for, and they either found it or they are not convinced that it's not going to be there.
There's also a Range Rover that they towed away, which I guess they're still processing at this point.
The Range Rover they towed away, that's the old Luke Daly thing, which I'm not sure what I think about that yet.
Yeah, and if they're still processing that 3 or 4 days later, it's either they're processing the heck out of that thing and tearing it apart, or they found what they wanted and they're not going to release that back to the people who owned it. I think the fact that they still have that is significant, and if they don't let it go in the next few days, I think we can assume that that's now evidence. And if they know a car,
this is pretty big, actually. So he's saying since that Range Rover has not been returned yet, if it's not returned in the next couple days, you can then assume that that's evidence.
They've got just about everything. I would say that with all the evidence coming together, I think we're getting so close. I thought the glove itself was kind of a Hail Mary, and I don't think that's I'm not surprised that hasn't come through for them, but I don't think they're depending on that. I think if that was their number one piece of evidence, they wouldn't have talked about it publicly.
As always, I really appreciate.
But here's the other thing about the Range Rover and Luke Daly. Well, the fact that the CODIS check, the FBI database, came back clean, you'd then have to think, okay, does that dude Luke Daly have a record? Because if so, then his DNA, they didn't find his DNA, if so. But I don't know if he has a record or not.
Appreciate Steve for making the time to talk to me. And I appreciate you guys for watching. It's kind of been a long day today. I had the interview scheduled with the sheriff, then they canceled. And I kind of was working on some other things. And then later in the day, they said, oh, no, you can actually do the interview with the sheriff. So I had to kind of rush back over here. But again, I'm glad I got that opportunity. And I'll be sure to stay on top of everything. I'm not sure what to plan for tomorrow. But yeah, if I seem a little out of it, it's because, again, I think today was just a day. But I will keep you guys posted. Again, I appreciate you guys for following along, for subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys later.
So someone said Luke Daly had a record, but it wasn't put in the system yet, or he was convicted of something, but it wouldn't be updated yet. I'm not sure how exactly they would know that, especially if he was already convicted. Like, when do they put it in the system? I don't know. But like I said, I'm not ruling it out, but I'm not that hopeful either. How about that? I'm 50-50. Because what people are saying is it looks like him. His face looks like the person in the camera, which it might. I'm not sure. It's tough to tell.
Nancy Guthrie has been gone for more than 2 weeks now, and the family has been cleared. Did you hear? Many also believe the ransom demands are fake. So what do you do now? Jennifer Coffindaffer, former FBI, returns to the program, and she says...
So, okay. So people saying he has a past record, then wouldn't that be in the CODIS system, right? That's what I would think. I don't like even talking about it because it's just such a rumor, and no one that I think is truly legit has even mentioned it yet. So I'm hesitant. I haven't heard Brian Entin mention it. I haven't heard Ashley Banfield. I've heard no one. They're all holding off on it.
She doesn't think it was random. She thinks it could be a personal grudge carried out by somebody who knew exactly who Nancy Guthrie is. We could be looking for a wolf in sheep's clothing. You need this information. You at least gave me the impression that you thought somebody close has something to do with this, but now the family is out. Do you still feel like there might be somebody in a circle, in her inner circle?
I still do. I think it's going to be somebody close. Never knew who, but it's going to be somebody close because look at how they acted. They're too familiar. They were too comfortable on that stoop. They picked her out of everybody. Look at, they pulled brush. Who does that and puts that up over the door? Just too many clues that they're comfortable there or knew her.
But you know, what's interesting to me is your take, I agree with. I've seen other people who have said he doesn't look familiar with it. I think he is. He might have been a little surprised by the camera, although he's looking to the left when he walks up to it, almost knowing that it's there, that he tries to cover it with the glove. And as you said, turns around, shows his gait and stride, shows his height for some reason, like a doofus, and then grabs some brush and tries to cover up the camera. So you feel confident that he did know the house?
I think he did. I just felt like he beelined there. He does try the door, which is kind of interesting to me, maybe thinking it would be unlocked. It doesn't look like he used any forced entry at all, at least from where we see, unless from behind somebody else was with him. But the bottom line is, I think this is somebody familiar. That area is so, it's like a honeycomb, you know, how it weaves through there. You have to know where you're going to get to where he was.
Well, I think we talked about this last time. By the way, her podcast is called Break the Case. Go and check that out. It is Jennifer Coffindaffer. The last time we spoke, we talked about this. They released the crime scene way too soon. Then they tried to, I don't know, I guess secure it again after people had gone to the bathroom in there. They'd done everything else. And then a couple of days later, Jennifer, maybe I'm stupid. There's a chance. They allow the pool company to show up and start doing some work. What am I looking at here? Would you have allowed the pool company in?
No, first of all, they did 4 searches, by the way. 4 official searches. The first search you just spoke of, that was the locals. Then the Bureau came in and did a search. Then the Bureau came in and did a second search, retrieved the camera, retrieved the car. Then they did a 4th search and looked in the septic. So,
but Jennifer Coffindaffer, when did they open it? After which search? After the 4th one? I don't know. Or after the 1st one?
that should have been sealed up. That's what I believe.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's just confusing to me how lackluster this sheriff appeared to be early on. I've been watching what he's been saying.
And by the way, folks, this person is named Joe Pags. I like him because he's pretty quick and direct and to the point. No nonsense channel. And he talks about many of the same topics. So go check him out.
Says things off the cuff that don't make any sense. Then he has to apologize about it later. And then allegedly he's not sharing information with the FBI. How does it work mechanically? Okay, you've got a case, high profile case. We haven't seen one like this in a long time. But does the FBI have to literally call the sheriff and say, we'd like to help you? That's what it sounds like they had to do that. Shouldn't he have called them early on?
Well, he should have. And I think the minute he knew that there were ransom notes involved, although, again, I think those are completely bogus, he did get the Bureau heavily involved. There's 100 agents on this deal, Joe Pag. So how it's looking behind the scenes is the sheriff has the authority. The FBI has the resources and the expertise, and those have to come together. They have to play in the sandbox.
And you're saying the whole ransom stuff is bogus?
That's my opinion. Yep. They wanted money. They've done it to get money. They didn't do anything to get their money. They didn't show the goods.
Exactly right. They didn't show any sign of life.
Maybe I got to invite Jennifer Coffindaffer on so I can ask her all these questions, because I have all these questions that I'm thinking about it
Whatsoever, which told me almost immediately there's no way this is about ransom. So any connection to cartels, you would take that out of the equation too.
Absolutely. Cartels care about money. And this was no cartel hit. That guy would never be in the cartel.
Let me ask you this. When you saw that they went to Rio Rico, which is about 12 miles north of the border, what do you think that was all about? Do you think that delivery driver, because he started talking to the media almost immediately once they released him, they detained him for a night or for a few hours, and he started talking to the media. Do you think he was a guy whose cell phone pinged in the Guthrie neighborhood and he was delivering packages and they said, well, we better go follow up on this? I mean, does the FBI have the technology to find out everybody who was anywhere near that area that day?
They do. There's geofencing they can use. And then I think that in conjunction with how he looked, I think there was a similarity, and I think somebody called in a tip. Look, all of this is happening because of the tips that have been generated from that stoop video.
I mean, and that Snoop video tells a lot. How do you think they retrieved that? Because it sounds like it was just X's and O's and binary, and they had to take it to a lab somewhere in the FBI and piece it back together. Because they didn't just get a video; they had to put it together, didn't they?
They did. That was all back behind the scenes because essentially she didn't have that subscription, so it didn't save to a cloud. So they had to pull it from the inner workings of everything that Nest had in combination with what the FBI had in terms of tools. It was extraordinary. Extraordinary. They got that video.
It is Jennifer.
Jay in the chat was talking the other day about how they did that, but long story short, they did.
Coffindaffer, for retired FBI special agent, go check out Break the Case podcast on YouTube. Also on X, Coffindaffer FDI, FBI, I should say. Go and follow her there.
Yeah, he does sound like a bit like a baseball announcer. Like just a bit outside.
As well. As we're watching this unfold, my wife has asked me the same question every single day since it happened. Why haven't they found her yet? Why haven't we gotten a break in this case yet? And I'm with her. I get that. I mean, when I was growing up, and I talked about this on my show just the other night, I used to think to myself, if I lost a quarter, somebody in the government can go and find it if I couldn't find it. There's a they there that can go and solve these cases and get this done. And we're feeling a little bit frustrated now, as I know that you are as well, over 2 weeks in. Why don't we know what happened yet?
Well, there's a couple of new breaks that I think are promising. And one is a glove that was found a little over 2 miles away on the side of the road that law enforcement is saying actually matches the glove that's in the picture.
So this is behind, even though it was uploaded today. So the first round of the DNA for that glove, X, nope, nothing in the federal database there, CODIS. Now they're moving on to the genealogy part. So that's the only part they have. But I'm more interested in the DNA in the house anyway, the genealogy of that.
That the perpetrator. So that's good news. Also, and this is the huge news, there's DNA within that glove or on the outside, but there's DNA in that glove. It's already sent to the FBI. This happened yesterday. We're waiting to hear back whether there's a CODIS match.
Yeah, as we're watching this
narrator, there was no CODIS match.
Unfold, and that's huge news. Does this show that this guy was a rank amateur? And here's why I say that. He walks up with the backpack and he's just fumbling around a little bit. As you said, I agree with you. Looks like he's familiar with the area, but instead of just punching the camera or taking it down, tries to cover it with a little bit of leaves and brush and foliage. That doesn't make any sense. And then if you're getting away, let's say this glove is his. Why would you throw it on the side of the road? Go to the nearest garbage at a McDonald's and throw it away. Why? It just sounds like this guy was he panicking? Didn't know what he was doing? Why would you throw a glove with your DNA in it on the side of the road 2 miles away?
Typically, it is panic. I've seen guns, masks, anything that was used in a crime, people want to get rid of that are amateurs, and they just toss it out the window thinking nobody will find it. So I think that what could have happened here, I'm optimistic, but cautiously so. Somebody could have thrown that. Somebody could have planted it. But nevertheless, I'm optimistic.
You know, yesterday we heard some reports that it looks like they have a match for the DNA, but they're not sure yet. What have you heard on that? Is there a match to the DNA inside the glove?
There's no match inside the glove, but there's DNA inside the glove. And that's why they're going to run it through CODIS to see if anybody of the 26 plus million profiles in there match up. In other words, was this guy's first rodeo?
So no federal database match, no CODIS match. Please remember to like the video there while you're here. If you're stumbling your way in here, finding your way in, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I go live every night and I talk about true crime and current events, and I use my experience with narcissistic abuse, mental health, and addiction to give my unique perspective on those things. Also, there's a great flock of black sheep here. A lot of people say they fit in here in a way that they never did other places, so I'm happy to provide that space for people here.
Or was he ever arrested or convicted of some petty crime prior?
What do you think? What is your general sense about who this guy was before he did this?
Well, I don't think this guy just woke up one day and said, I think I'm going to go kidnap this person. Right. This is a crime, ultimately, I think, of retribution and revenge, perhaps, at least in their own mind, something very personal. You have to look, what would the person gain by having Nancy Guthrie gone? It always comes down to either money or hatred and revenge. And I'm worried that now we're working on that premise.
So I know that you're not working this specific case, but if you were and you wanted to find out a motive, is motive important right now as you try to find the guy, or is that not important?
I always want to know motive. When you have motive, that leads to who it is. You get rid of so many other people, so motive is critical.
So your feeling is that it's something personal, possibly some sort of vendetta. What does that look like? So this guy was because again, we don't know who he is, but this could be somebody who did work around the house. There could be somebody who had a run-in with her somewhere in the city. We don't really know, who the person is. But when you say there's a personal something there, how does that manifest? What does that look like?
Well, it can start with something small. Somebody feeling like you didn't respect them, you didn't treat them right, and that boils over in them. It can be something that small, Joe.
I mean, can you imagine? So, I mean, this could be.
And again, I think of it like this: people die on the streets for $20, if not less. When emotions run high, things can happen pretty quickly. Now, but in this situation, I don't think it was necessarily a emotions run high situation. It was more like this was planned. This was planned, and either revenge or for ransom, one or the other. I'm still trying to piece together what the revenge could be. Maybe it's tied to Savannah's husband. I really don't know. I don't know. Maybe something in terms of the family and like jealousy, favorites. I just don't know. I couldn't tell you.
This could be disconnected completely from this being Savannah Guthrie's mother.
No, I think it's connected.
So you think that is connected?
Yes. So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, but I meant boiling over with something that Nancy Guthrie said, did, otherwise was interpreted by this person.
Right. So, but the fact that she's Savannah's mother also plays into this.
I see what you're saying. I think it could. Look, is his revenge at Nancy or is revenge and retribution and anger towards Savannah? They can't rule that out right now. That's why the motive is so critical.
It really is. It's Jennifer Coffindaffer. Go to Break the Case over on YouTube. Break the Case, all one word. Great YouTube podcast. And go follow Coffindaffer FBI over on X as well. Nancy and her brother and sister. Now, not Nancy. Savannah and her brother and sister have been doing these videos. Savannah by herself, most recently. The early ones were, "We're going to do what you want. Bring her back. We want her back." The next one, "We got your message. Bring her back. Talk to her. She's our whole world. She's our light. Please bring her back." And then it started to look a little bit angry. Like, what are we doing? Like the brother looked like he wanted to, and I don't blame him, man. Trust me. I'd like to have 5 minutes in the room with this guy too. So I get it. And then Savannah starts coming on by herself, almost looking desperate, and certainly starting to look desperate. And in fact, at the end of the second to the last video, she says this is a point of desperation. What are you taking from these videos? Are they all coached? If you were working this case, would you be telling Savannah, do this, don't do this? I would.
This is a good question by Joe, because people, like I said, they're starting to pick apart Savannah on X. I think they're being unfair, but let's see what Jennifer Coffindaffer says. Jennifer Coffindaffer is a former FBI agent, by the way, and this channel is Joe Pags. Check him out. I think he's no nonsense.
Do it again, maybe do 2 today. I mean, how would you be working that angle of it?
100% I would be doing that. There's no way that somebody in her situation, all emotional in the middle of this, should be making any decisions. That's like a doctor treating themselves. She's going to be looking at the experts from the behavioral analysis unit that deal with these types of things for decades, and they're going to manifest exactly how she should say it, what she should say that has worked in the past for getting people to admit or come forward with something.
Is it important that she keeps saying this is our mother, this is our light, she's a peaceful person, we love her so much? Is that a way to personalize, Nancy as maybe this person certainly has a mother, or it did at one point, who kidnapped her? Are you working on the emotions through that?
Yes, establishing some sort of empathy. Again, if more than one person is involved, maybe the main person that perpetrated this wouldn't have that empathy, but maybe somebody else that knows about it or knows this person, maybe.
So I got distracted by a troll. I rewind this.
Is it important that she keeps saying this is our mother, this is our light, she's a peaceful person, we love her so much? Is that a way to personalize, Nancy as maybe this person certainly has a mother, or it did at one point, who kidnapped her? Are you working on the emotions through that?
Yes, establishing some sort of empathy. Again, if more than one person is involved, maybe the main person that perpetrated this wouldn't have that empathy, but maybe somebody else that knows about it or knows this person, maybe it would incite empathy with them.
What is this whole 16 gloves were now recovered? What the heck is that? Are you telling me that researchers and investigators are leaving their gloves out in the crime scene area somewhere? What is this?
Well, there are some photos of people shoving their gloves in the back of their pants, right, in their pockets, and
Right.
I think some could possibly fall. They talk about homeless people that maybe lived out there. This is a 10-mile radius type area where these
Right.
gloves. 16's an awful lot, though. I mean, isn't it warm in Arizona?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's a lot of gloves for sure. But they're confident that this glove looks a lot like the one that the guy had on, and this DNA could in fact be his. So
Looks can be very deceiving, though. And as we already know, the CODIS database said no match. Genealogy test is next.
So what's the next step now? The lab, well, first of all, let me go back to the DNA being sent from the scene to Florida. I mean, that was another gaffe, I would assume that you agree with me, by this guy, Nanos. Instead of using the FBI lab at Quantico, which is the best lab on the planet, for God's sakes. So does the FBI now get the DNA back from the lab in Florida? Do they wait for the results from Florida? Do we have those results in? And then do you try to match that to the DNA inside the glove?
Well, a couple things, Joe. I actually did agree with the decision to go back to Florida, and this is why.
Okay.
They had done so much work at establishing profiles of the individuals. If they send it to Quantico, they have to start from step one, establishing with all those profiles. So I think it was the right call. So after it left Florida and they said, listen, we have male DNA here, then it gets.
And this is what I've been mentioning, right? I kept on saying Jennifer Koffendorfer says she has no problems with the stuff going to Florida, as she reiterated right here. And then it added maybe a step, but they clearly did the step. The next step was, okay, you have to send it back to Arizona before you send it to CODIS, because CODIS doesn't take things from a private lab. Okay, but they did it. They did it, so.
Get sent off to Quantico strictly to compare with CODIS. And I agree that Quantico is the best, and they are going to double check the results to make sure the profile markers are correct.
I don't know if you have the answer to this, Jennifer. And again, it's Jennifer Koffendorfer. Go follow her. Break the Case is the podcast. What would indicate DNA? Could it be a piece of hair that was male? Was there something else going on? I don't want to make an assumption about a sexual assault or something, but why would you have DNA from somebody other than Nancy Guthrie inside that house that night?
Well, that's a good question. Remember, too, there's a long time frame. This perpetrator was likely in that house. You know, they say up to 41 minutes. I don't think they're accounting for getting in, but just say even 30 minutes. It's an eternity. So what could have gone in there, I hate to think about, but knowing from my business, the worst of the worst could have happened in there. We don't know what kind of DNA. It could be hair, could be sweat, could be touch DNA. It could be semen.
And the fact that we know that it's male doesn't exclude the family, although you said the family has now been excluded publicly. Could that be a ploy, or when they say they excluded the family, they mean that? Nobody in the family did this.
They mean that. They're not going to come out and say that and backtrack. No,
I don't agree with Jennifer there. I think they've done that before very clearly, right?
He came out and said it. I believe it.
What about this other thing that happened the other night? And I know that you were probably watching it as well, because when I went to bed,
the only thing you could say is maybe Jennifer's in on the chess move. Yes, I'm going to agree and say, yes, he really means it, because I want to see the people mess up. That's a charitable interpretation, though.
On, I don't know, 2 or 3 nights ago, they had a Range Rover on the side of the road that looked all dusty or fogged over. Then they lifted up a piece of tarp or something so the media couldn't see what they were working on. I, for a moment, feared that Nancy might have been in that car. You had no idea. Then they had 3 people detained. You know, Jennifer, when you have that kind of activity and then nothing comes of it, does that really mean that nothing came of it? Or maybe something came of it, they just couldn't keep them. They couldn't hold them any longer.
Joe Pags, I agree with you. Look, they only have 48 hours. They have to make a decision. They didn't have enough to charge, but they had enough to take that vehicle. They had the probable cause to take it. They had crime scene up. They marked that crime scene on the door so they could show when, if anything was broken. They marked that as a crime scene. And the fact they put that tarp up, I thought initially they tarped the whole car. I saw it clearly. No, they tarped because they did not want anybody seeing what was in there that they were looking at.
What do you think they were looking at? Can you speculate or not?
Well, I could say what first came to mind for me.
Sure.
Why I would tarp something, I would tarp it if I saw copious amounts of blood in there.
Right.
How about that? But if there's copious amounts of blood in there, and they're talking about the Range Rover, I believe, are you going to release that person? I mean, copious amounts of blood. Wouldn't the first thing you do is check that, right? And that would be pretty direct. I mean, like, if that blood was Nancy's blood in the car and they check it, that's enough to arrest you, right? That's enough to pretty much charge you with murder.
Tarpet.
Yes.
That was the first thing that came. I'm not guessing. I'm not speculating. I'm telling you from my experience what I would tarp for.
Well, we know that her blood was on the front doorstep, which doesn't make a lot of sense for her to be bleeding that much. Many have said probably from her nose. Can you decipher where that blood was coming from and the way that the droplets hit the ground? And do you think it was a bloody nose or something else going on?
There's the question my chat was asking yesterday. So let's hear Jennifer Koffendorfer's thoughts. The question was the blood spatter on the front step. What do you think that was from? Let's hear Jennifer's response.
Well, I think she was carried. I think
Okay.
that because she was on blood thinners and her hands and arms were paper thin. If you look at footage from her on the Today Show, lots of bruising. It wouldn't take much. But I think it was minor type of bleeding that she had there. I think they dripped in that pattern, which go all the way, by the way, to that edge of the parking lot. Look, they didn't teleport out of there. There was a car there, and they took her out, or he took her out, he or they. And nobody stepped on those blood droplets. So I truly believe she was being carried, and that's possibly coming from the head area. I also think that backpack that was stuffed full of items, nobody goes in to commit a robbery with a full backpack. You go in with an empty backpack and then you fill it up. I think that was to shroud her face. And so I believe that's what was in that backpack.
You think this guy was alone?
I don't. I just had a long discussion with another colleague of mine. I don't. I think somebody went in possibly from the back, and that's why he checked the doorknob, because they were going to let him in. I have this feeling that it's two people at least.
And watching
I agree with her on that one. So what she was saying was one of the reasons for the sheet. Remember when they were doing something with the Range Rover, they put the sheet up. Some people were speculating, oh, it must be a body. No. It was not a body. And then Jennifer said, because Joe asked, well, why else would they put the sheet up? And she said, well, copious amounts of blood. I don't think that's what it was either, because copious amounts of blood would be a humongous lead. So again, I don't think it was that, which leaves, what was it then? I really have no idea. That's my answer. I'm not afraid to say I don't know.
Overhead shots of this house, I wouldn't have any idea how to get in, how to get out. So like you say, there was somebody who was there. I mean, do we want to say it could have been a worker? It could have been a delivery driver. It could have been, I mean, do we have any idea? Okay, the family's out. Could it be anybody else? I mean, again, you say there's probably a connection to her somehow, that she was in fact targeted. Can we start making assumptions about who this person might be? Because they had a layout of the house. You can find out online where just about anybody lives, but that doesn't mean you know how their house works.
Yeah, how their house works, how to get in, where that camera would be. And remember, we have another camera that's on that roof. I am dying to see what footage they got from there. Did they see that car leave? You know, we don't know. We're working with about 10 cars when there's 50 in a deck. But from what we know, I think we're going to have some camera footage from that camera as well.
So you think the FBI or the Sheriff's Department already has that camera footage? They just don't want to show it?
Yep, that's what I think. I really do. And remember, they're only going to release something that they think the public can help with. So it's good news, because if they haven't released it, maybe.
That's a good point there by Jennifer, too. They're only going to release things that they think the public can help with. Remember that.
They were able to decipher it and found what they needed to find.
I might be thinking about my cousin Vinny, and I apologize because I'm not an investigator, obviously, but tire tracks and tire tread seems to be a big deal. Now, if like the next day, 82,000 cars showed up, so maybe you don't have those tire tracks. But if the car is parked out by the road or in the circular driveway somewhere, we're not really sure where it was parked, or maybe we do. And they take her out in whatever, shape she's in. They put her in the car. That car is going to have a unique tire tread, and it might be a tire that a lot of cars use, but that would certainly whittle it down. Do you look into things like that?
You always do, but the sheriff said very early on, I want to say day 2, that there's no tire tracks, no tire tread. And I truly believe it's because everybody rolled up on that scene.
Yeah.
Again, didn't protect the crime scene. All these people trudging around, all these vehicles, anything that might have been there was long gone.
Yeah, I know Sunday morning quarterbacking is not easy, but I mean, you still have a missing person here and the case is still active. What should have been done differently from the beginning? Because again, let's just dial it back a little bit. The sheriff's department gets a notification after the family is told she doesn't show up for church. She's going to either do church through a video link like she normally did, or maybe she was going to go there with somebody. And they said, we just didn't see your mother today. And then they say, okay, there's a missing persons. Can you go and check on somebody's well-being? This is an 84-year-old woman. As a police department, and again, you're FBI, but as a sheriff's department, should they have been more careful right from the get-go? I don't know if they knew that it was Savannah Guthrie's mother, if that changes the story. What should have been done differently, like the moment they found out that there was something awry here?
Very good question by Joe Pags. I mean, we can also say, well, clearly they shouldn't have opened up the crime scene so soon. But let's see what Jennifer says.
Well, and I agree with you, Joe. I always hate to Monday morning quarterback because all of us make mistakes, and I hate to do that. But I will say this. If you treat a missing case like a homicide from the beginning, you're in good shape. If you don't, you end up with John Benet Ramsey's situation. So I really think you just have to treat these missing cases in this way, and you can't really mess up as badly anyway.
Would that have changed? Because again, there are people who get a hold of me every day now saying that we have missing people all over the place. Why are you paying so much attention to this one? I get it. Well, there's major national and international interest in the story because of who her daughter is. Does it change the game at all? Does it change the plan at all as an FBI agent or even as a sheriff's deputy, whatever, law enforcement, when you find out this is the mother of the Today Show host? Does that change things immediately?
It really does. I got to be honest with you. Not from the standpoint that you care more or less, but from the standpoint of you know your case is going to be scrutinized. And when you know you've got a magnifying glass hovering over everything you do, you're going to be even more careful. So it's actually can be helpful to know that it's being scrutinized like that.
When you watch Savannah's video.
And again, that goes to show you, right? People aren't perfect, because should it matter the amount of attention a case is getting? No, they should be doing the same amount of effort and work on every case. But she basically just gave up the game there and conceded, now more attention equals we're going to be trying to do better.
Yesterday, again, the tone and tenor is changing over time. What did you take from that? And again, you thought this was coached?
I think it was coached. I really do. I took from that you're seeing somebody completely depleted, exhausted,
yes,
everything in her power to say. You can see it on her face. Her face looks gaunt. She was holding tears back. People said she wasn't emotional. I totally disagree. It's just a different kind of emotion. But her eyes were welded up. She was told what to say, and she tried to deliver. Look, she's a talk show host, and she's amazing, but she's not an actress. She did the best she could with the message, and I thought she did a great job.
I saw a report this morning, I think from 911, some site over on X. I don't give it any credence other than I'm going to tell you what they had to say, and you tell me if you think that there's even a chance. They say that soon, and maybe today, that the authorities will say they think Nancy Guthrie is still alive. Do you get that feeling?
Well, look.
All right, chat. Before she goes, I mean, press 1 if you think she's still alive, and press 2 if you think no. As crude of a question as it is.
Anything
you want that. You want that, but you know.
But you work with probabilities. And in this type of a case, particularly because she required medication. They said 24 hours, it could be a lethal situation without her meds. And obviously she's on a pacemaker and she needs blood thinners for it to function properly.
Right.
So, I think they're trying to instill hope in everyone, but the probability is very low at this point.
What do you know about the technology? And again, it's Jennifer Coffindaffer, a retired special agent from the FBI going.
Yes. So most people think the percent chance is very low that she's still alive. And I don't know how anyone else would say come to another conclusion at this point, given everything that we know.
Follow her Break the Case over on YouTube, and also Coffindaffer FBI over on X. What do you know about the technology that was used in a helicopter first, and I think they might be bringing a drone in to try to sniff out if the pacemaker is somewhere nearby?
Right. This sniffer, it sounds so great and so sexy, but at the end of the day, it's got to be very close range to make out the pacemaker. And that's from research I've done combined with the sniffer information that we have, it just has to be close. And so I think it's a cool tool. And maybe if you could see something with infrared or see something that you thought might be a body and you could go down and use that instrumentation close, I think it could be worthwhile. But unfortunately, I think up in a helicopter, it's not going to work.
It is Jennifer Coffindeffer. Why do they keep searching the neighborhood at Annie's house? For some reason, they keep going back there and searching again. But again, today, you just broke this on my show. They are eliminating the family. Was that just a process of elimination? We want to make sure that you're not a suspect?
Partially. But the other thing is, where did this crime really originate from, if you will? She spent the night before playing games, having dinner at Annie's house, and then was taken. She followed from there. Was somebody in that neighborhood and followed her out to that house, so they would know she would be in there when they hit it. It makes a lot of sense to me as an investigator to start where the person was last known to be alive.
It's all very interesting because, again, she Ubered over there, which doesn't make sense to me, but who knows what the arrangement was. It's only 4 miles away. You would figure somebody can come and get her, or she would drive there herself. She had her own car, but whatever that is, the son-in-law drops her off. But this break-in didn't happen for hours after that, right? I mean, if you followed her home, do you think somebody might have been lying in wait just looking for the right opportunity?
Yeah, I think lying in wait, because there's a lot of factors, right? What are the neighbors doing? Not only what is your subject doing, also when did their lights go out, everything going on in their house, but also the the surroundings. When does everything calm down enough that you can saunter up there like this guy did, and he truly sauntered up to that door and go in and retrieve her?
It's very interesting why you think that this guy was familiar with the house, and others have said this guy was absolutely not familiar whatsoever. In fact, he was surprised by the camera. What did you see early on? Because you've been saying this since early on, that told you he wasn't unfamiliar.
Well, he walks in, and I don't know if you have that video. It's 4 seconds long. He walks in like this, and he goes straight in. Why do you do that unless you know there's a camera? Now, maybe he... look, that was his site survey, and he knew there was a camera there from his site survey, but he beelined there to it. Now, this guy is not the sharpest tool in the shed, for sure. He didn't bring anything to cover it, but he sure as heck knew it was there. He tries to cover it with his hand. He realizes that's not doing the trick, so he goes and pulls brush. Who does that? Take a rock and smash it. I mean, this is very unusual for the manner of how this was conducted.
Is there a chance they've already talked to the person who did this? And I'm not blaming anybody specifically, but they've had 3 people detained the other night, the delivery driver earlier on. And I got to tell you something, and I don't know that it's this guy. I'm not saying that, I'm not accusing him of anything, but a delivery driver knows the topography of your neighborhood. They know what gates you do and don't have. They know what your front door looks like. They know if you have a camera or not. They know what the front step looks like. I mean, I would not be surprised if it's somebody who has been in that area. So let me ask again, and again, we're not blaming anybody at this point, but do you think they might have already talked to the guy?
I think it's possible. Look, they haven't cleared.
It's certainly possible, right? It would make me more leery of why they didn't find something when they talked to the person, right? It makes me think they still don't have enough direct evidence, whatever it is. But hey, it's up in the air right now. And just because Sheriff Nanos said the family is clear, to me, that doesn't mean they are. But please remember to like the video while you're here and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I talk about true crime and current events every night.
Anyone other than the family now. So it's possible. Look, they had enough probable cause to go into the house in the middle of the night and to seize a car.
Yeah, I mean, imagine they pulled him over to keep him from going to the house because then they're going to be serving the search warrant. What is the mother-in-law's involvement in this? It sounds like she's the one who called or said he knows something about it. The reports have been very scattered on what the mother-in-law was saying and how she was involved. But what really jumped out at me, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this, I don't think I talked to you about this last time. If I did, I'll repeat it. If I were a delivery driver, and I said this the other day, I truly would know whether I ever delivered to the house that's big international news right now. And this guy, when he was sought out the media and started blabbing his face off, he said he didn't know if he delivered to her yet at that point, but he knew that he delivered in Tucson. I just found it to be really weird.
Well, I tell you, the delivery guy I actually thought was believable. It's the other guy that I'm not sure, since they took his car, crime scened it off, and tarped it. That is the one I would be more concerned about. And as far as not remembering, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a pizza man who delivered for a podcaster, right?
Ridiculous.
And they said, do you know where you're at? And he said, no. He knew nothing about the case. He lives there. He works in that area. He delivers pizza, and he was dumbfounded. It's beautiful. It's on tape. It's one of the funniest things I've seen.
I saw it. I mean, how does law enforcement let him like try to walk to the front door? I'm like, what are you doing?
That's a whole.
Is that the pizza to JLR thing?
Oh, that's another point to be made for sure. But to me, this guy just, when they said, do you know where you're at? No, not really. Must have been one of these guys, you know. How about all the dozens of cars lined up and you're at Nancy Guthrie's? There are so many people, though, as you know, Joe Pegs. They don't follow the news. They're not newsies, and they really don't know what's going on. And that's the sad thing, because people need to see this video.
It's happening.
Pause it here. Thank you very much, Gog. Did Annie's house have a camera? What time did Tommaso return? Sheriff could clear a lot of speculation with that info. We have heard nothing really about Annie's house. We know that they investigated it. We do know that. And they had the blue gloves on that one night. And they took pictures inside. But then that's all we heard. We haven't heard anything about Annie's house since then, really. And then they were staying at a hotel. But good question, though. I don't know anything about a camera there. Thank you.
Right under your nose, though. If you're in Tucson or just south of Tucson and you work in Tucson, I would figure that you would be aware of what's going on in that area. Jennifer, I always appreciate the time and the access. Let me ask you one last question, because you'll know this better than anybody, I think. I'm not asking for any inside information other than how much more do you think the FBI knows now that we're not aware of?
If I had to put in a percentage, 90% more.
Really?
90% more that she thinks they know that they're not telling us. So basically what Jennifer Koffendorfer is saying is we know nothing. We think we know, but we really have no idea. So 90% means maybe they're closer, but regardless of that 90%, it's still day 17, regardless of what percentage you say. So that means there's 17 days that have gone by.
Really?
We know almost nothing. We know a molehill. They know so much more information. Mm-hmm. And they were able to family too.
They're able to clear the family, right? Okay, so again, they know a ton more, but do they have to go through and analyze and say, we can't release any of this, but we can release this little thing that could help us? Because if they released everything, that would help out the person, right?
Right. They're not going to give anything that doesn't help them. They don't care if the public knows anything. What they need the public for is identifying that guy on the stoop. And I guarantee you, Joe, someone knows who that is. You know, if that were your brother, your son, your father, you would know exactly by how he dresses, the whole Walmart garb, how he turns, that eye that fades in, that skinny little eyebrow.
Maybe. I'm not so sure, though.
Brows that he has, that, you know, fluff of hair above his lip. You know who that person is. Somebody needs to come forward.
And any time frame on when we're going to get a resolution here? Are we getting close?
I think we're closer. I think we're closer. We're not looking at months or years like the sheriff said. We're looking closer than that.
It is Jennifer Koffendorfer. I always appreciate the time and the access. The people love your analysis of this case. And thank you for staying on top of it. And thanks for making time today.
Thank you.
You're amazing. All right, that's it for Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags for this time. Another one to drop very soon. Make sure you subscribe.
Interesting. So our buddy Brian came out with a new short. Brian never sleeps. Entin. BSNE. No, that's not what that is. BN. Yeah, I was right. Brian never sleeps. Entin. BNSE.
Hey guys, so I'm outside the Pima County Sheriff's Office. It's actually getting pretty late. I'm gonna leave here soon, but I interviewed the sheriff today, one-on-one. Did a lot of media interviews, and at first he canceled mine, which was kind of a bummer, but then later they said, oh no, actually you're good to go, you can come over. So I talked to him about a lot of stuff. What I thought was most interesting is we talked about the Google Nest camera. Remember the camera in front of Nancy's house that they thought they wouldn't be able to get video from because Nancy doesn't have a subscription, but then Google somehow found the video. she had other cameras too. And I sort of thought that law enforcement already had the video from the other cameras, but they just weren't releasing it. The sheriff told me that is not the case. They don't have the other video, and they're actually waiting on Google to see if they can recover the video. And he's hopeful that Google will be able to, which would be a big deal. These are the SWAT trucks, by the way, over here outside the sheriff's office, which I'm always kind of like spying on to see if they leave to go anywhere. Anyway, so I'm trying to think what else he said interesting. I mean, he defended, his handling of the case. Obviously, there's been a lot of criticism. And he says that he has a good relationship with the FBI, despite some of the sources that we've talked to. The interview kind of started off with him saying, like, you have questions for me, I have questions for you. And he kind of brought up some of the reporting that we've done that he's not happy with. So anyway, that's the latest. I'm gonna try to get some sleep soon. And yeah, so I feel like I'm actually kind of delusional tonight, but I'm gonna pull it together. All right, bye.
This is his most recent short. According to the comments. All right, so it just turned into an hour. About an hour ago.
Guys, so I'm outside the Pima County Sheriff's Office. It's actually getting pretty late. I'm going to leave here soon. But I interviewed the sheriff today, one-on-one. Did a lot of media interviews. And at first he canceled mine, which was kind of a bummer. But then later they said, oh, no, actually, you're good to go. You can come over. So I talked to him about a lot of stuff. What I thought was most interesting is we talked about the Google Nest camera. Remember the camera in front of Nancy's house that they thought they wouldn't be able to get video from because Nancy doesn't have a subscription, but then Google somehow found the video. She had other cameras too, and I sort of thought that law enforcement already had the video from the other cameras, but they just weren't releasing it. The sheriff told me that is not the case. They don't have the other video, and they're actually waiting on Google to see if they can recover the video. And he's hopeful.
So this is important here. I missed it the first time. So there's other cameras in the house. Brian was thinking they have that video already, just like they pulled the porch footage. He thought they pulled the footage from the other cameras, but Sheriff Nanos said to him, no, they didn't do that. They're still waiting to do that. But that would be very, very interesting to see where those other cameras were and what they found, especially if inside the house. In fact, that would be humongous, right? That would be something that would go to the top of my list, actually, even more so than DNA, perhaps. Like, maybe you'll see if there's more than one person. But, DNA is still going to be important. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to do the genealogy thing. But if there's a camera inside the house and you can see some of this, holy mackerel, that's big.
Hopeful that Google will be able to, which would be a big deal. These are the SWAT trucks, by the way, over here outside the sheriff's office, which I'm always kind of like spying on to see if they leave to go anywhere. Anyway, so I'm trying to think what else he said interesting. I mean, he defended his handling of the case. Obviously, there's been a lot of criticism. And he says that he has a good relationship with the FBI, despite some of the sources that we've talked to. The interview kind of started off with him saying, like, you have questions for me, I have questions for you. And he kind of brought up some of the reporting that we've done that he's not happy with. So anyway, that's the latest. I'm going to try to get some sleep soon. And yeah, so I feel like I'm actually kind of delusional tonight, but I'm going to pull it together.
I'm not shocked one bit, though, that Sheriff Nanos addressed those other two interviews that Brian did. And that's probably exactly the reason why Sheriff Nanos wanted to talk to Brian. Oh, wait a minute. Brian was talking to those other two guys that were smearing me? I got to get up there and set the record straight and manage my image. So that's what it seemed like to me. But overall, though, he didn't say anything anyway. He didn't address any of their claims. So, he grandstanded there for a little bit. And overall, just said a whole lot of words, but didn't really say anything we didn't already know. But anyway, people, I think that's really it for today. I think we have a good base of knowledge here again. We figured out the CODIS database, the FBI CODIS database. We found nothing with that. Waiting for the genealogy. Waiting for the footage of those other cameras, too. That's pretty big to me. And then the other thing, like Jennifer Goffendorfer said, if they know 90% more than they're telling us, we're pretty much in the dark at this point. And maybe they're closer, but regardless of how close they may or may not be, it's still day 17. And I don't know if they've even switched to, no, we're trying to discover a body now. I don't know. I don't know if they switched to that. But it wouldn't surprise me if they did. Because again, could you imagine? Could you imagine if they're still keeping her alive somewhere? They've gotten all of her meds proper. It would be shocking, honestly. And the only way she'd be alive is, I think, if she was in Mexico. There's no way she's alive in America. I mean, everyone would know it. The only way she would be alive in America if she's tucked away in a home somewhere or in the wilderness somewhere in like a cabin in the woods. No other way. But I'm glad everyone was here for the night. Please remember to like the video while you're still here. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I go live every night, talk about true crime and current events, and I use my experience with addiction, mental health, and narcissistic abuse to give my unique perspective on those things. And most of all, a great flock of black sheep here too. And I was a little disappointed. I don't know what Kat was talking about earlier. She was saying people were targeting her, but I didn't see that at all. So I'm not sure what she was seeing, but I don't think people would do that here. So, but either way, I hope that wasn't happening. But yes, thank you, Heather. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, Mavs. Thank you, Livin, for modding. Thank you, Songbits, for modding. And we'll see. I didn't see it either, Jolly. So I was just going by what Kat said. Did you see it, Danielle? You got it, Kelly. And thanks for being here, Danielle, too. Thanks for coming back. I didn't see it either, Hot Ham, but we'll see. Have to make sure she's okay. Cookie Monster. Do you have those edibles? Thank you, Laura. Thank you. I didn't either, so that's why I was confused. I was like, am I not seeing something here? That could be true, Danielle. I mean, I'm pretty sure I get all the messages, so I'm not sure. Yes. Yes, indeed, Baked. It would have to be Mexico. That's just my guess, though. Thank you, YouTube bad actors. New subscribers are very welcome. Hope to see you more in the chat. Yes, I do too, Tim. Nancy and Kat both. We don't know. I mean, the motive would be huge to know, and we just don't know the motive. Money or revenge, right? It's got to be one or the other. And I think they blundered the money part, if that's what it was. So maybe revenge. Yeah, I'll be live tomorrow night, almost without a doubt. You got it, Zoe. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I did. I don't believe the TMZ letters. I think they're kind of fraudulent. I believe they're getting them. I just think they're full of it. And I think TMZ tries to make a bigger deal out of them than they are for the eyeballs. But I really think they're just fraudulent. That's me, though. That's me. Thank you, Dana. I tried looking up accidents with the Guthrie family, including the son-in-law. I couldn't come up with anything on ChatGPT. Makes sense. Yeah, see you tomorrow night, Beth. I don't disagree, Tim. I don't disagree. Oh, boy. Find the guy sending the reward request, and he will find the one creating the whole situation. That could be. They're sending it from the same email address. My guess would be it's just someone trying to exploit the situation. And then it would be like that other person that got arrested and then released on $20,000 bail. Hopefully, Jolly. I mean, they're dangerously close to having the case go cold and having the eyeballs leave them. But I'll tell you, if they get that camera footage and release it from inside the home, holy mackerel, that'll re-spark the case. Thank you very much for this. No, Banfield took the night off. But that doesn't mean she's not going to post. Sometimes she posts in the middle of the night. I've seen her post at 3, 4 in the morning before. But as of now, she hasn't. Sometimes she likes to collect all the data before she puts her video up. Yeah. Nothing yet from her. I bet you she'll post in the middle of the night. So you'll all wake up to it. Yeah, I don't think people believe Harvey either, honestly. I think they know his motives. They know Harvey's motives. Exactly, Leslie. That's what it is. I mean, occasionally they break something important, but for the most part, I don't really care about them. Yeah, that makes sense, the lady. If I'm sleepless, I turn on like Sleepless in Seattle. But all right, guys, that's really it. It was a pleasure having you all here. Again, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I'll see you all tomorrow night.